So the third part of their argument is transgender does not describe a politically powerless group of people.
It is no secret that until 1920, states were constitutionally permitted to deprive women as a class of the right to vote, and most did. For the first few centuries of this country, women could be prohibited from voting, serving on juries, owning a credit card or bank account, and divorcing an abusive husband. No one has ever been confused about the class of people whose rights to all these things could constitutionally be withheld. In other words, part of the reason that this court granted women quasi-suspect classification status in Reed was because at least up until 1971, women were politically powerless. The argument, as valid today as it was in 1971, was that the Equal Protection Clause protects women and girls on the basis of sex because women and girls have historically been discriminated against on that very basis.
In contrast, there is nothing politically powerless about the group of people who call themselves quote unquote transgender. Since 2012, then Vice President Biden has been saying that transgender discrimination is the civil rights issue of our time. On his first day of taking office as president in 2021, he issued Executive Order 13988 on quote unquote preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity. They shoehorn that in with sexual orientation. Like whether you're attracted to the same sex or the opposite sex is the same as this gender identity, whatever that is. But
Really conveying that.
they force team that on purpose.
Yeah,
If
totally.
people have an issue with it, they can say, "Oh, are you homophobic?"
No, cynical theories. It was the James Lindsay,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
Todd Rose,
Mhm.
the book about wokeness, and they have many instances of comparing transgenderism to a sexual orientation. They're conflating it with homosexuality, which
Yeah.
I think that's suspect. I don't know why they would want to do that. Either they don't understand the issue or
Mhm.
they're interested in somehow legitimizing it. They do understand it and they want to legitimize it this way. So I would say that anybody who's conflating an imaginary costume wearing thing with an actual human sexuality, of which there are what, three? Bi, straight, gay, right? There's three sexualities, right?
Mhm.
That's suspect.
Once something becomes acceptable
Mhm.
and also affirmed, they wanna put more things in that category. Yeah?
Yeah.
So gay rights made it through, at least in the countries that we're talking about. So,
Yeah.
oh, well, this is another one. This is another sexual orientation, or it's somehow akin to it. Yeah, it's force teaming. It's putting things under a category that negates the category.
Right.
It's just obsolete. The idea that being attracted to the opposite sex and wanting to be regarded as the opposite sex or no sex is somehow the same. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when you
Uh,
have men pretending to be transbians and they want to join lesbian dating apps, that actually has a real world consequence right there. It's not just like, oh, why can't we conflate them? We can't conflate them
mhm,
because then the predators will go and predate.
mhm.
Yeah.
AKA straight guys who like to pretend they're women. So to
Yeah.
turn everything that somebody gets off on into a sexuality or gender identity that then has to be protected and affirmed, let's think about where that could go.
Yeah. Very dangerous.
As the court below noted, the President of the United States and the Department of Justice support the plaintiffs. So these poor put upon people have the President on their side, the Department of
Mm.
Justice on their side, the Health and Human Services on their side, ACLU on their side, all these other organizations on their side, but they're
They're
downtrodden.
marginalized. Yeah. For
Um,
them.
14 states have passed laws specifically allowing some of the treatment sought here. 20 states have joined an amicus brief in support of the plaintiffs. The major medical organizations support the plaintiffs. Of course they do. So again, medical associations are supporting this gender identity mumbo jumbo. And the only large law firms to make an appearance in the case all entered the controversy in support of the plaintiffs. These are not the hallmarks of a skewed or unfair political process, and they offer no explanation for inviting a greater political dysfunction problem. The difficulty of amending the Constitution if the federal courts err in choosing to occupy the field. So basically, the idea that this is a politically marginalized group is laughable.
Yeah, totally laughable. It's just to think a man can put on a comedy wig and stuff his bra and then say like, "Hey, I'm a woman." And then women, we're all supposed to believe him and not the women who say, "No, he's not a trans man. We have to believe the man." It's insane. Katya's compass.
Legal certainty is a principle in national law which holds that law must provide those subject to it with the ability to regulate their conduct. Thank you, Katya. The court should acknowledge that the category of people who call themselves transgender have become one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the country.
Yeah.
This is important to realize.
In the world.
And if you pair that with the work that Jennifer Billick and others have done about the motivations and the money
Right.
and the future markets that people are salivating around this stuff, it becomes easier to realize that it's not just about these poor people that have quote unquote gender dysphoria. It's very much about we need our products and services to be recognized as legitimate in law.
Yeah.
We can't sell people this like gender kit if the laws, yeah, no, you're still whatever came out of your mama.
Stay out of the man's mouth here.
It doesn't matter how you kid out your body.
There's no validation for them without going into women's spaces. There is no validation. Once they get to the point of wanting to wear their costume outside, they need external validation and they need people to be discomfited by their presence. It's a weird thing that most normal people, you and I, probably don't understand this. We don't get off on it. I'm sorry, I'm maybe sounding really rude, but we don't understand.
No.
We are normal people functioning in society. So that's why they need to date lesbians. That's why they need to be in our spaces. So if the big prize gets taken away, yeah, everything falls apart.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Morbid Symptoms podcast. I'm your host, Tara, and I'm joined here again with my partner in crime, Tanya. We're just two ladies who like to hate on the poor trans people. I've always been this way. You too, Tanya?
Yeah, I'm a hard bag. An old bag.
Anyway, welcome to Morbid Symptoms. Today we're talking about, we're tackling how the ladies' room is political. So some of you have probably heard the personal is political. It used to be, maybe it still is, a feminist mantra. And now the ladies' room is political. And if you're tired of this issue, you don't care about it, don't blame us. Direct your ire or discomfort at the trans right activists, the gender industry, and their useful idiots who have pushed through this thing that there's two types of women. There's as unintentional, just born that way women, and then there's, or unintentional, as female women. And there apparently is also this male women who really feel like they're a lady in the inside, or I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I can't know what people think in the inside. So anyway, this has become a partisan issue. What is a woman, right? That fantastically not debasing or denigrating question. What is a woman? Has become a political issue, whether or not biological sex is real or should trump people's expressed gender preference, whatever that means, is why we were here. Because the women's room, we have women's, this, people might not have thought about this until, sometimes you don't appreciate something until it's gone. But there's a reason why the bathrooms and changing rooms and certain spaces and sports and activities are separated out by sex. and that's not a product of colonialization and or just a Foucaultian discursif. We're material creatures, we're mammals, and we come in two types. And sometimes it quite matters. Anyway, so the ladies' room is political. Did you ever are you still surprised sometimes that the ladies' room has become so political? And by the ladies' room, I'm using as a stand-in for all single-sex spaces, which I know you know.
Sometimes I'm surprised that anybody is even talking about this. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid. What a waste of airspace. So, I mean, there's good things have come of it. I've got to chat with you and stuff.
This is true. This is true. I mean, yeah, silver lining, yeah. I mean, and I guess someday I'll know. I'll look back and I'm like, I'm glad I know all this stuff about these minor niche sexualities and odd. It's a good thing I know what sissy porn is and faux vaginas and the perineum. Well, I'm sorry. We're not going there. We're keeping it on the political, but we have to joke sometimes. Yeah, this is yeah, it is what it is. I lost my train of thought. Oh no. Oh, it'll come back to me. Okay, so we have four things we want to do today. We want to cover is that we're now having the battle of the ladies' room, and we have to deal with some of you who are either are not familiar with the Big Lebowski, or either because you're a younger generation or just never got into that. You might know of the character Donnie. And since what's been going on in the United States with Representative Nancy Mace and taking a stand saying that Sarah McBride, who's a male who identifies as a woman, as a trans woman, she pushed the thing like, we're not gonna, our communal space, even though they have their private bathrooms, there's also shared spaces. And she was like, no, I want it to be clear that women's spaces are for females. And this started off a bit of a brouhaha. So, and in response to that, a lot of people, because everything is political, hyper political, people see it as a red-blue issue or a liberal conservative issue. So people are jumping in and saying stupid things that we've dealt with for a decade now. So we're going to kind of commiserate over that. The idea that nobody needs to look at people's genitals to know if they're a man or a woman 99% of the time. And it doesn't matter. I don't care if you rather pee. And especially when the guys chime in. If there was one time you really should shut up if it doesn't affect you, it's the women's room. Women's changing room and women's sports. I mean, you can of course make an argument that when it comes to reproduction, that since we're part of this, they're also part of the species and the father and all that. Okay, you can. But when it comes to if men who say they're ladies or identify as women get to come into the bathroom and our sports and whatnot, that's a totally us issue. Yeah. Actually, we should push it back on them. It's like if there are men who are so concerned about their safety when they're in their woman gear or whatever, then they should take it up with the men. That's a men's issue.
I don't understand why men don't want to go to the toilet with other men who are dressed as women. Oh,
yeah. Let's see. We have Artless also here. Can you hear us? Oh, okay. Okay. Barely. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Sorry, people. Are Artless from we're from 3 continents tonight, so she. I'm gonna see if she can sort that out. Okay. I'm just gonna. Can you hear us?
See me anyway. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, you probably won't be able to see me because I'm using my headphones and my phone's elsewhere. So.
Okay, that's fine. We can hear you though. Welcome.
Welcome.
You haven't missed much. We just started about 5 minutes ago, and we're just talking about all the tired cliches and pushback that have come out since the Nancy Mace thing in the United States, and people who people who either aren't aware of this debate or just popping off because it's about owning the other side. We're just talking about how we're tired of seeing. It's like tired of seeing these same stupid things from like a year ago. It's like, can you guys? So I'll just show before we get into who Sarah McBride is and Nancy Mace and the Battle of the Bathroom in Congress. I'll just pop up this thing so people can, so we can all enjoy rehashing. If I can find it, hopefully I can find it. Oh yeah, here we go. So things like this. This is secular talk and Kyle Kaczynski, who's a dick, literally and figuratively. So things like this. So, nice to meet you. I need to see your dick. GOP is saying I need to see your dick. And like that's basically what's going on here. It's so belittling. It's so stupid. And even after they lost the election by not with this type, not only for this stuff, this idea that somehow there's this small group of ladies who are causing problems, and we're all radical far right people, and we just really need to make sure that nobody has a dick when they come into the bathroom.
It's such a low quality meme too. I mean, he could have at least come up with a funny one, for God's sake.
Yeah.
It's such a lame endeavor. Lame attempt.
And then we see all the AOCs and his wife Crystal Ball and all the trans maids, and they want to make it like this poor one put upon trans woman, quote unquote trans woman, and all the stuff going on, and don't blame trans people, blah blah blah. And it's like I just get so tired about being gaslit. It's like we did not create this problem.
No, we didn't.
It's just like, please. It's like, whose bright idea was it to be like, oh, there's women and there's female women, and then there's these male women who claim a gender identity, and yeah, it's all cool. And if you say anything about it, then it's either it's gone from I think from my point of view. Let me know what you've been experiencing, from being transphobic, Nazi, this and that, to a lot of people, especially on the left, except for these people who have the, who want to placate to the Democratic base. People don't want to talk about it, and they get mad at you for bringing it up. Oh, what's the big deal? It's just the bathroom. Or somebody will pull up these statistics, like that one guy, Brad, who's all over this now. Now he's an expert about the women's room. And he's saying, oh, there's only, your chance of running into a trans person. There's only, it's like 1 out of a million or something like that. And so what's the big deal? And so my thing to Brad is like, well, Brad, how are you making that calculation? How do you know how many trans people there are?
It doesn't really matter. He's a man. He doesn't have to think about who's in the bathroom with him, okay? Because most men, they have the luxury of walking around in life being oblivious to their surroundings, right? And women don't have that luxury because we constantly have to be on alert because of, just the nature of the world as it is, right? I was about, is it Laken Riley? Was it Laken Riley? Yes, it was Laken Riley, the 22-year-old who went running and she was killed by a Venezuelan immigrant somewhere up in Georgia or Atlanta, I think it was. And I was thinking, just went out for a fucking run, and that's not even okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the kind of stuff that women have to be alert and be aware and be on guard for. So it's okay if you don't have to think about if there's someone trans in the bathroom. Women do, because unfortunately we are targets. That's just what it is. Get with the program.
Yeah. Everyone, these guys become oblivious that they're, 32%. It's just, to me, I also realize with the, I think we talked about this, Artless, with the Amin Khalif thing, that there were people who were just coming at you about Amin Khalif. And I was like, what are you, the fan club president? And one lady even said, no, I just can't stand when the Republicans just have to pile on this and blah, blah, blah. Like, so I realized, okay, a lot of these people don't even care or know. It's just a chance to, poke fingers on the other side, whereas there's actual consequences to this stuff that we're aware of. So it's just, It's just like, is there no learning curve? Jeez, us.
I just don't know that they're stupid or they're dumb or they're just callous. I can't work out which one it is, because you either just don't care that a man is punching a woman in the boxing ring, or you're stupid, so you haven't done the research, right? Because if even if you had like an iota of doubt that this person, because there's another one now, isn't it, the Banda guy who's now the BBC's decided to award him football of the year. And a part of this is the media. They lie so much, or they misrepresent the facts about these people so much, so then it looks like we're the bigoted ones or whatever. But the point is, if there's even a smidgen of doubt about someone, wouldn't you go and do the wider reading rather than just dismiss it out of hand? And that's what I find so baffling in the conversations that we have with these people online about it, because it's not like I'm some expert. I have some magic circular wand that makes me see into Banda's genitals, but I mean, how many more of these cases are you gonna I'm just saying, like, I don't have an MRI scan in front of me where I can just see what's in this guy's body or whatever, but obviously everyone, I mean, have you seen him? He looks like a man. That's number one.
Yeah, well, this is also the crazy thing, that people pretend this feigned ignorance. It's this, we have what I call the evolutionary eye. I don't know if it's a technical term, and it's quite proven that we all pretty good at identifying the opposite sex, but women, for obvious reasons, are more acute at the others. So yeah, if someone has really gone out of their way to have everything kitted out, and there's good lighting, and it's from a distance, okay, but up close, I'm sorry, it's not difficult at all. And kind of beside the point, because as we know, it's this idea that some people want to pretend like there's not a valid or rational or basic reason that you have women's bathrooms and men's bathrooms. Like somehow that's just a heteronormative patriarchal construct or something.
Yeah. And I think to sort of follow on from your point, Tara, this whole idea that women are supposed to just trust the evidence of our own eyes. Clearly, when you do see these men, they don't. Not only do they not appear female, all of them, Samanya, Khalif, Banda, none of them even make even the remotest attempt to code feminine at all.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not the biggest thing, but I almost feel like it's a slap in the face now, because now you're insulting my intelligence. This person isn't female.
It's all
doesn't
bullshit.
even.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, one of Khalif just literally walking around, just doing like shoulder bumps with his training. I'm like, okay, come on. I'm not saying we all need to walk around like simpering 1925, maidens, but women don't go around bumping other guys. It's just not the thing.
No. And it's denigrating. It's just, again, every time we ask these questions or get into these conversations, it implies, it re-solidifies almost that it's up for debate, And I know why people, and I do it too, why they want to focus on the strength differences and the safety reasons and all that, for why, we don't want to have, we don't want to make it easier for men to invade women's spaces, especially when we're on the toilet or changing clothes or in the hospital or in the prison, all this stuff. But it should just be, no, these are our spaces. We all know the difference between men and women, so back off.
Totally.
And I think also this compunction to be nice that obviously has been drilled out of me a couple of years ago. But still to this day, people don't want to be like, well, no, it's not. We of course, trans people deserve dignity and respect and this and that and this and that. Was just it's like, which I can understand the ultra line, which is like, okay, if either there are people who are quote unquote trans, or it's just a subjective, like, moniker, like saying you're goth or something. And it can be really meaningful to people, but you're still male or female. But anyway, so I had particular fun with this, talking about how people read mail. I had particular fun with this thumbnail yesterday and today. And all of these people on the screen are male. And you may be shocked to find out about that. You know, the thing is that we have Jennifer Pritzker. He's a billionaire. Yeah. Martine Rothblatt, billionaire. Caitlyn Jenner, I don't know, 500 million. I don't know. This is the lady who is, this is the woman. This is the doctor who's the head of the W Path, who's like, who did Jennings, we'll call it surgery. So
Marcy
he's also,
Bowers.
he's a Marcy Bowers, Dr. Bowers. And it was also in the What is a Woman documentary. The guy in the corner here, he goes by Sarah now, and he's the one that was the center of the controversy. Or I guess, well, here's the thing, and this is the great thing, how it's always, and I want to let me know if you feel the same way, that this is about basically Nancy Mace saying, and it started with just being, maybe it was a political stunt. I don't know, maybe just about, but I believe that she is, doesn't want men, regardless of how they identify, in shared women's spaces. And it became all about poor Sarah here, poor put upon, singled out, disrespected Sarah, who, because Nancy, Nancy Mace, basically said at some point because Sarah McBride was elected from Delaware, I think, House Representative from Delaware, and they call Sarah Congresswoman. And so now I want to take a point to say that Congresswoman, the definition of a Congresswoman is an adult human female who was elected to the U.S. Congress.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she, this got attention, and I have no doubt that she wanted to have attention, which is fine. She's a politician. And so, she's good at the media. But quite quickly, she has gone on to this and, protecting women's spaces, hold the line. And she's just, posting the threats that she's getting from those put upon poor damsels and or mansels in distress. How they, are going to come and get her because how dare she think that womanhood is only for women, et cetera, et cetera. And women's bathrooms are for women. And she says, here's a tweet: biological men have no right to be in our private spaces. It's that simple. And at first it was just a bill, or I think it's about the rules, because I guess they have rules in Congress, which makes sense about, for the new people, like these are, I don't know, decorum. I don't know what it is, house rules. And it was put in there that basically that women's rooms are for females and the men's spaces are for males and all this stuff. And now she had extended it to, you thought you're threatening me. Oh, you thought threatening me would silence me. No, I just doubled down and filed a new bill to protect women and girls across the entire country on all federal property everywhere. Yeah. And I don't know how far that's gone. And I do want to say something, Tanya, because you want to, and this is important, about how excited or cautiously optimistic we get when someone like this jumps in the fray.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, without sounding like the jerk of the group, I didn't. It's fine. I just.
What do you mean? Don't trust a politician?
I'm glad she's saying this stuff. It's going to have great effects. I think that she happened to discover this oddly, because I know that from other posting on Twitter that she has had stuff to do with previous bills that let men into women's toilets. So, I mean, I'm glad she's had a road to Damascus moment. I'm glad she's had a change of heart. The proof is in the pudding. So as long as she follows through with everything, and she doesn't like sneak in an exception, or because they do that, they kind of go, ooh, well, yes, I say all the right things here, but look at me doing this over here. So that's all. Like, I'm just saying, let's watch her and hold her feet to the fire, make sure that she's going to follow through. I mean, it looks like she's following through, and she's certainly got the right political climate to do it in. So, you know,
Mhm.
what's stopping her? Is she going to get a call from Jenner going, "Oh, what about me? I'm so sad."
Well, that
Right?
could be. That's the thing is I was like, please, I was like, I want to enjoy this for a bit. I'm going to pretend that I don't know about her other positions, like, with Israel and whatnot. Because I'm like, finally, somebody is, a U.S. politician is, standing up to this stuff and not, and in a strong way, like, all right, let's, or it was, I don't know, what it was off air, like you said, just keeping it simple. Like,
Yeah.
women's space, the women's room is for women, females, whatever. Uh, But I was thinking along, how long are this going to be before her and Jenner have some sort of powwow to, to figure out, to come to a consensus
Right.
about the womanhood. There's room for all of us in the womanhood. We'll get to that Brian Wu craziness.
So
Anyway,
let's hope she doesn't, just keep her
yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Like
one
you
good
guys,
thing. Go ahead, Artless.
I was gonna say, I think like you guys, I definitely share your reservations. And I, like Tanya says, she's definitely making hay in the current political climate, because obviously Donald Trump has his win has forced the trans issue right back into the spotlight, whereas Democrats kept to, slyly but incrementally, increase trans quote unquote rights over women. So, with Donald Trump's election, all that's been blown back into the water, and now they're back, right back into the square hairs. And I think that is irrespective of our politics. And I think I may have said this, maybe Tanya's heard me say this before. I think America is going to be at a very interesting crossroads over the next 4 years, where they're going to be where the UK was in 2018, just before, when we're discussing, self ID. And if Labour had won that election, we definitely would have got self ID in the UK. And I think obviously when the Conservatives won, I know obviously WP UK are now resigning and stuff. A lot of people are very horrified, but as a result of that election, and I know Boris came in with a lot of drama and a lot of everything else, but his government turned the tide. And I think that's what's going to happen in America, because America's gone really crazy over the last 4 years with the trans issue. The boys and girls schools, the boys and girls, the Loudoun County issue, the sports issue.
In prisons,
it's really,
yeah.
They're due for, a course correction right now. And that is what Donald Trump is going to provide in terms of the female rights issue. Everything else, I think everyone knows, is just going to be, a shit show of, chaos and corruption and everything else. But Democrats brought that upon themselves. That's just what's happened now. And that's they deal with it. And I actually feel like some of them are realizing they've gone a bit too far, because I don't know whether you saw this, but there was an article in the New York Times about trans activists finally, I don't want to say seeing the light, but some of them certainly realized that they've gone too far in their activism, and are now, singing a slightly more remorseful tune. But of course, when you start losing, then you start seeing how it goes. But I think it's very interesting 4 years, but I actually think it's actually going to be the next 4 years is going to be one that, if your GC, is going to be a good one for you in that regard. Everything else, the jury's out. But I think for GCs, like, you're gonna. And then the good thing about it, and I don't necessarily want to, be like, oh, single issue or whatever. But the good thing about this will be that as a result of, whatever reforms he introduces, if and when the Democrats come back, the political climate would have shifted so much they can't go back, right? So, like, for example, when Labour came in, as far back, Keir Starmer was saying as soon as they got in, they would do self-ID. That's not going to happen now in the UK, because the political climate has shifted so much that it's just not possible. And I think you're going to see a similar thing with the United States as well.
Yeah, you would. Let's hope. But I wonder how it's kind of interesting because there's still people want to think you can find some common ground. It's like, well, it's an either or. Either women are adult human females and men are adult human males, or it's a free for all. It can't be both and work in reality. It just
Yeah.
cannot be both. And I hope, I'm sure there's some networking between Turf Island and the United States, because it's going to be for example, today I was on X, and someone clapped back at me about how I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just nitpicking. And it was on a tweet when I had the if a person has a penis, he's a man, that meme.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman was coming at me like I was nitpicking, and I'm thinking, I'm nitpicking when I say that men have penises, and the women's single sex spaces are for women, and the men can have their own. And then it comes out, and then and so first, and I respond that, and then she comes in, well, no, you just don't know, and you should just mind your own business and let people be. And I'm thinking, again, this gaslighting. It's thinking like, if you think this is what I want to be spending my time on, it's not the case. But then it came out, the third tweet, that she's a grandmother of a transgender grandchild.
Right.
And so she wanted to throw that at me, like, so she knows and I don't. And I just basically said, if you want to pretend, or I don't know if I use the word pretend, or convince yourself that you have a transgender grandchild rather than a grandson or a granddaughter, that's your business. But we're not obliged to go along with it.
Yeah, really.
We're not.
I'm starting to say you're a bad parent. I know that's awfully rude, but I'm starting to say to people, well, you're just a bad parent. You're a bad mother. You're a bad grandmother.
Yeah. It's
like, let's stop this. You're doing bad to that kid.
Yeah.
Stop it.
But just to make it about us, like, oh, just let it. It's only a few people, and why are you being so this and that? And the idea that every major institution deciding that we're going to redefine women to include men who identify as women isn't a big deal. Yeah. And then no, it's not just about the quantity. It's not about the quantity. Not that anyone could ever determine the quantity of actual trans people, because there's no immutable trait and there's no coherent definition. But put that to the side. It's what this says is not good, whether it be about experts or institutional capture or the manufacturing of consent, or seriously, we have to pretend that these guys, I'll put this back up again. These guys are emotionally put upon, marginalized class. And if we don't agree that they're just different women, they're as much a woman as we are, just different, that somehow we're the problem, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
No kidding.
And I was telling, I was reminding Tanya Artless before you came up. Do you remember that meme with the roller coaster, and they have like the friendly, everybody's cordial and nicely talking in the one car, and then coming down looks like people coming from the Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And on one side it says new entrants to the sex gender debate, and on the other side it's like veterans.
So
I'm
funny.
totally living that meme.
Yep, on the wrong end, unfortunately.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, Artless, we have three things. I have a thing about who Sarah McBride is, and also bringing up how he's the one that Julia Long and Posey Parker had a tete-a-tete with, I think in 2019, and to go over Sarah's biography. Then we have Brianna Wu, because both Brianna and Caitlyn Jenner are trying to vie for the left-right version of the reasonable, true trans woman. And then, of course, we have the UK case, so that I think was happening yesterday and the day before. You have out of the three of us, you have the most background knowledge and expertise on the UK situation. So how much time do you have? Because if you're limited time, we can switch from the bathroom gate in DC to the UK case first.
Yeah. Sorry, one sec. I think with McBride, I think it's very obvious that he has a long history of
Okay, but Artless, what do you want to cover for? Do you want to jump ahead to the UK case, or do you want to just? Should we just stay with the trajectory that we're on? I just want to be
I
cognizant
think
of your time.
no, stay on the trajectory. I'll just chip in when I
Okay.
can, and then yeah, like I feel like
Okay.
you and Tanya continue the conversation, and where I can chip in, I will do.
Okay, but I do. My thing is, I want to get your take on the UK thing because you know more about that than especially when it comes
Okay.
to the division between the ultras and the GCs and this type of thing.
Yeah, let's do
So-
that now.
Okay, now because I think
Okay.
Tanya's quite well versed with that as well, aren't you, Tanya?
No.
Mm.
Certainly not.
Okay, so people, sorry. So what we're going to do is because Artless has spent quite a bit of time in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think you even wrote your concerns back in what, 2006 or 2004 when this whole thing started, if I remember correctly.
No, I didn't write about it then. I think I was aware of it, say back around like maybe from
When they were asking
2015.
for consultations or something.
Yeah, so that wasn't that early. In 2004, no, I had no idea about that.
Okay. Well, anyway,
yeah, but
we're gonna jump ahead. So we have 3 topics. So we are going to cover Sarah McBride and Bathroom Gate with Nancy Mace, and and how people are using this as just coding this as a left-right thing, pretending that ladies like us don't exist, because there's a lot of us who are not far-right radicals who know what a woman is and know that it's important to not have chaos reign or put fantasy over reality. Brianna Wu and the Caitlyn Jenner and who's going to be the true trans or reasonable trans, who's going to win that contest. But we're going to fast forward now to the Supreme Court, the UK Supreme Court case.
Okay.
And let me pull that up. Which was basically, it's about clarifying in the is it the Equal Rights?
In the Equality Act. So it wasn't the Equality Act.
Wanting to clarify what they want to clarify what counts as a woman.
Yeah, what it really was back in I think 2018, the Scottish government tried to introduce this measure in which they would open up representation for women on financial boards, right? So to get more, so I think they pledged where they'd have maybe 50% of boards now include women. But then because Nicola Sturgeon was very trans captured, they then tried to say that this measure, which they was saying they were using to increase representation of women, include trans-identified males. So of course that makes a mockery of that, right? So woman Scott took them to court because if you are redefining women as including trans-identified males, then clearly that whole measure it kind of the wayside, right? Like the whole point of this whole measure is to increase the number of women that you have on financial boards, and you are redefining women to mean inclusive of males. So you could very well, and this is the absurdity of that measure, end up with a board of 50% Tims and 50% men. So there's no women in there because this is how stupid this measure was. Mm-hmm. So they went to court the first time, they won. Then the Scottish government tried to do a few more amendments which would still keep including men in this redefinition. So they took them to court again, and then they lost an appeal. So this is the final appeal that we've had now. So yeah, I mean the issue. Hold on a second, one sec.
Okay, go ahead. I'll finish.
Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, just for a moment while
my phone's ringing. One sec.
Yeah, I'm just gonna mute you for a second.
Yeah. So they took.
Oh no, I'm not. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so while you're collecting your thoughts, I'll just say that my understanding of the significance and why there's so
I
much
beg your pardon?
focus. Yeah, hold on just a second. So much focus on the UK Supreme Court case is that it's about it, at the crux of it is it's going to set precedents about what the legal definition of woman is in the Equalities Act, which, as my understanding, has more standing, or I don't know how the word is, but it's a more stronger law than the gender recognition certificate legislation. So
Well, so the gender
people are watching
recognition,
this.
yeah, the gender recognition certificate is about legal recognition, right? And the
Mhm.
Equality Act is about discrimination. So the kind of protections that are
Okay.
afforded to you based on that recognition. So they're two different acts that complement each other, but they don't serve the same purpose.
Okay. And they complement each other, but they also that's the conflict, isn't it? That's the source of the notion is that does woman in the Equalities Act, which is about protecting what do they call it? Protected classes from discrimination, do trans
Yes.
women, aka males who identify as women, count as a woman in that act?
Yes,
Is that
because the whole
okay?
point is part of the Equality Act and the protections it affords is and how it's supposed to, interact with the GRA is what do you recognize these men as women for all legal purposes, or are there limitations
Mm-hmm.
in the circumstances in which you recognize them as women?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so Scotland women or UK? Yeah, Women for Scotland, for Women Scotland, yes, and a couple of other organizations. I think
For Women
Women
Scott.
Scotland
For
brought
women,
it. Yeah, they're the
yeah.
plaintiff, I think.
Yes.
And they want, what they're asking for is that it becomes clear that sex in the Equality Act remain a biological term, that that women means adult human females and girls, child human females, and that for that to be clear, so that women can still say, okay, when it's single sex spaces and whatnot, that the males that have gotten this gender recognition certificate can't say, no, I have this certificate, so you have to let me, for all intents purposes, include me as a woman. Oh,
what happened?
okay. she might be back, because
She'll be back.
where she's at, the internet is can go in and out.
Right.
She's not. Yeah, we're on 3 continents tonight, so
Yeah.
streaming from 3
feet.
continents.
Feet.
Yeah, but we'll see if she gets back. So my understanding is the stakes of the case is sex in the Equality Act, which is about discrimination, protecting certain classes from discrimination, going to be clarified to refer to adult females, and how the court's decision to include holders of gender recognition certificates in the definition of woman impacts single sex spaces and protections for women.
Right.
And of course, this is going to, people are watching it because it's the first time this issue has reached the Supreme Court.
Right.
So people are very much, I think there's a lot writing. There's, hi, Artless. There's, my understanding, there's a lot. Can you maybe say something why there's so much focus on this case? And then also the division between people who are celebrating that it finally made it this far. That the Supreme Court's going to have to rule on this, and the people who think it's problematic and that the focus should be on abolishing the GRC outright.
So, because it's the Supreme Court, whatever decision that they make legally binding, right, it's going to set precedent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no more appeals beyond this point.
Okay.
So if so that's why it's pressing importance, because if they do end up ruling that these men can be counted as women, we can't appeal. There's nowhere else to go, to be honest. Maybe to the ECHR, but they're probably likely to agree with, they're even more captured than than we are in the UK. So it's it's like the last of the dice. However, having said that, personally, I feel like even if it doesn't go our way, I mean, what it will then do is force the government's hand then now to redefine what woman means in the Equality Act, because
Okay.
have gone to court over what's in the GRA, but now then force, I don't know whether you know, Sex Matters have been on this campaign of, redefining or clarifying, shall we say, not redefining, clarifying that sex means biological sex in the Equality Act. And I think that if the ruling doesn't go for women's court, it goes against them, then I think the case for that is now made infinitely stronger now to say, look, obviously, I mean, it's even absurd. I can't even believe we're still talking. Like, it's the absurdity of us even discussing this when it's so very bloody obvious that clearly, if you read even the Scottish government submission, one of the submissions which really just caught me, I think it was they put it in writing, because sometimes I'm like, okay, some people just don't appreciate how absurd like the situation is right now, but they've actually put this in writing as a legal submission that a man who's been given a GRC could be considered a lesbian, and lesbians would be quote unquote discriminating against such a person if they didn't allow him into the association. And I'm like, you wrote this down legally and you didn't feel stupid? Like, seriously? We are like, come on, this is what
Yeah. Well, here's some good things about people so Genevieve Gluck, everyone should follow them because they've been doing the Lord's work, digging into the porn aspect of this in particular. But this Robin Moira White has a GRC, and Robin put out an op-ed, I think in the Pen today, saying that this court case, that to clarify that woman in the Equality Act refers to human females, is an existential attack on trans people like him. Sorry. See, I've been programmed. And I saw that, and I thought about this great meme that I think I might have gotten from Tanya. Tanya's the great meme collector.
I love them.
So there's this meme, and there's a trans one of these male women on the left saying, "Stop giving me your toughest battles," and on the right it looks like Jesus, and Jesus is saying, "Just use the fucking men's room." And I was thinking, with this drama, of course, they've been enabled and affirmed and stunning and braved for, I don't know, 10, 15 years now. And when I saw this post this morning, I thought of the image from Infinity Wars. I don't know if you guys watched the Avengers, but in the last two Avengers films, the bad guy, he snaps his finger, because he's like a Malthusian, yeah? So he thinks there's too many people in the universe. So he snaps his finger, and then half the people and all the planets in the universe just disintegrate into nothing.
Wow.
And I'm like, is that what's going to happen if they clarify that, if they get what they want, the best possible case, and it's like, okay, no, sex refers to human, to males and females. Not that the woman isn't adult human females and also males who identify who claim a woman gender identity, that people like Robin are just going to disappear.
He's not going to disappear. The problem he's going to face is the ruling is for men who have a GRC, this gender recognition certificate. And as far as I remember, he doesn't have one. He's never bothered to get one. Yeah, because a lot of trans males have actually not, in the UK, there hasn't been a huge uptake of the GRC, mostly because they can get most of the things that they want without one anyway. So it's not, there's never really huge impetus for them to go ahead and go for the GRC. But in actual but if we were to go strictly by the legal route, you are quote unquote you get more benefits if you've got a GRC than if you don't, because it's only the GRC that makes you quote unquote legally female. for I know, for want of a better word. But what I will say is the GRC is what entitles you to certain female provisions. So without that, technically speaking, if institutions and the and politicians had actually stuck to the letter of the law, then you would have a very clear delineation between those who have the GRC and those who don't, right? But as usual with this movement, they want it all, they want nothing. They go big or they go home, right?
They want the cake and eat it too. They want the penis and the mangina. I don't know. All right.
Yeah. So because they never police themselves, obviously now everyone's like, no, well, we don't care whether you've got a GRC or not. You're just not coming in because, you know, if even they tried to put themselves in the sense that, oh, we will go through this getting the GRC, you'd then be able and say, okay, if you have a GRC, then maybe you could have some access to certain provisions. But no, you just said, oh, yeah, that's really what the letter says, the letter of the law says. But in practice, no, we don't really care if you got it or not. You just you know, trans women are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously hardened positions for us women, where we're just like, all right, if that's the case, then none of you are coming in. Bye.
Yeah. But you're getting some fantastic stuff. I mean, this, I guess, even so, if this case doesn't go the way we want, you're still going to have fantastic things like this. So Lady Rose must be the what do you call, barrister? Anyway.
Yeah, I think she was
so,
one of.
So this is between Ben Cooper, who is part of the legal team for Sex Matters, and Lady Rose is asking him a question. So Lady Rose says, under your definition of biological sex, a trans woman who has undergone gender reassignment and has a GRC, is she a woman? And Ben Cooper says, no. And Lady Rose says, well, then who are they? I mean, and Lady Sindler says, a third gender. And Ben Cooper says, a man.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's not a certificate that makes you a woman or a man. It's just so hilarious.
Change your sex, and even within that act, it never changes your. It says you acquire. You know, the wording is really dense, right? But it says you acquire the gender, quote unquote, of the opposite sex. So they, even that wording, they've conflated sex and gender. So of course, biologically, you can't sex, and you know, all you can do is, my understanding of both pieces of is that you are like, you get a GRC, the law allows for you to be treated as the opposite sex for some purposes. It's not for all of them, it's for some. But of course, with mission creep and you know institutional capture, people have just extended what the some legal purposes are. Yeah. But if you even read, like, you know, the judgment summary of, say, when Maya Forstater's case went to court, you know, I don't have it to hand on me now, but the judge was very clear. He was like, listen, in private capacity, you don't have to recognize these people, and you know, but for the purposes of, you know, the Equality Act to cover, I think, four strains of discrimination, harassment, and what's the other one? There's about four strains of it, okay, and it's for those kind of things. Really and truly, it's, I think you have a similar thing in the States where, you know, housing, work, employment, you know, those kind of things, you know, but it wasn't really to be like, oh yeah, men come into females' bathrooms. That was never what it was about. It was about, no, you shouldn't be discriminated against just because you are trans. Discrimination, you shouldn't, people shouldn't not hire you because you're trans. People, you shouldn't, you know, you should have access to all public services. You know, never meant to be a carte blanche to go to women's sports.
And most people would have no problem with that. That's what I think a lot of people assume. Is like, yeah, you know, if people want to, you know, want to go, how do you even say? I'm just going to say it. If they want to pretend they're the opposite sex, and they however they change, whatever their, I'll just use gender expression. That's easier. That, yeah, your gender expression Yeah, you shouldn't be within reason, unless your gender expression is to be an exhibitionist all the time. But I'll just say it to get through this point. That what you said, yeah, that's you can't discriminate against somebody for housing or a job or other things based on that. Fine, but that started there into no. If anytime my gender identity is discriminated against, is somehow hate speech or bigotry. And then you get the pronouns, and you get you get Leah Thomas and the swim team. You get all the stuff that we are. It's the quintessential slippery slope, it seems. And I just can't imagine these women. Are they just so indoctrinated? Are they just really good at their job because they just have to? Because I love this phrasing, under your definition of biological sex.
Right.
We don't all get our own definition of biological. Like, what's your definition of murder? What's your definition of ammonia or bleach? I mean, it's just, it is so hilarious. And Ben Cooper, I wonder how they keep a straight face with this.
Ben's good though. He's
well, then who are they? If they're not, if a man has done, if a trans woman has this. If she's not a man, is it a third gender? And he's like, no, he's just a man, which is like, duh.
I mean, he's just the truth, and that's really what it is. Of course, if they, but the thing is, the Equality Act,
I don't know.
It made those provisions, and people have decided to go on mission creep and extend that and pretend like, it didn't make those provisions. I mean, there's several bits of the Act in the Equality Act where it makes very clear. So, for example, we have the exceptions, which make it clear that, okay, under the protected characteristics, you have sex as a protected characteristic, and then you have gender reassignment as a separate protected characteristic. So anybody with a GRC or trans people who haven't got a GRC, they're protected under the PC of gender reassignment. They're not protected under, they're not protected under the PC of sex. The Lords intentionally put those two in as separate PCs. They never intended for it to be connected. But it has.
I get that, but they'd have to realize that when those two things come in conflict. Yeah, so if someone thinks that I'm being discriminated against based on my gender identity, and the others say like, no, we just are a lesbian group and we don't want you here, then who? I mean,
no. So the exception,
or was that plotted out more?
Yeah, it was plotted out more. So you weren't allowed to discriminate them just on any. There are only six exceptions where, on the basis of sex, sex, takes dominance. Sports was one of them. I think the examples did have changing rooms. Okay, they had associations in there. So I'm really surprised that I have to get back to a while since I was so gung ho and everything can crank. But we have
if we can look it up later. It's fine. I just was because some of this stuff is just you think, oh well. For example, when Tanya and I last week, or the week before, we were going over the amicus brief that WDI, Women's Declaration International, did for the case that's coming to the Supreme Court in the United States, but that's I think that's around gender care for minors or whatever. But it's going to be about asking, if transgender is some what they call quasi-suspect class. The language is interesting. And you're reading this stuff out that they're saying, and you're like, how did nobody think about? I mean, was there any thought at all about this? You read the definitions, the official definitions they have, which are just not non-definitions, and it's just amazing to me. But anyway, so I thought maybe it was the same kind of shit show in the UK.
Okay, so the EA sets out 6 main areas where gender ID does not supersede sex. Okay, single-sex services, which include bathrooms, communal accommodation, occupational requirements, gender-affected activities, which would include sports, single characteristic associations, so that would be lesbian associations and things like that, and women-only short lists. Okay, so those were the 6 areas, but all these were predicated on the idea of sex being a separate characteristic to gender reassignment. Now, of course, the British government is saying the two PCs should be conflated as one, and that's what the whole fight is. That's why the definition becomes even more important, sort of delineate.
Yeah. And Tony has a comment here. For the trans, are they trans or are they women? They seem to refer to themselves at different times as two distinct identities. Do you want to respond to this, Tanya, or?
I already did. See, that's me. I said they are whatever they say they are.
Oh, is that you? Okay.
I couldn't resist.
Cool. Oh, thank you. So you're on
Whatever
it.
they
I
say
should have
they are.
known with the three ladies here that somebody was actually tending to the comments.
I just discovered it. I didn't realize I could do that.
Oh yeah, no, cool. Please do. But yeah, here's the thing: is that, and I noticed this, and I don't know if they feel if it's the activists or if it's the people who identify as trans. But I've noticed this more and more in the language, or at least what I'm seeing online is people are saying trans people, trans person, transgender person. And I don't know if they're, and I go, well, you need to tell them that, because the guys who say they're trans women, they want to be able to go wherever the women go. That's the problem. You know, that's why you have Robin Moira saying, oh, if it's clarified, and then I have to, it gets reasserted that the women's room is only for females, that that's an existential issue for him, because they don't get to have that affirmation of that the goodies you get for identifying as saying you're trans, they're being whittled away if you don't if it becomes clear that there really aren't two types of women. There's only one type of woman and
He's
one
saying
type of guy.
He can't exist outside of his sexual fantasy. I mean, they all tell on themselves, right? Like I have, if you deny me getting, sorry, I don't know how to not be vulgar. If you deny me,
ahead, just don't get me kicked. I mean, we're not monetized because we're a small channel, but go ahead, Tanya, go crazy.
Oh my god. No, like if we deny him his gender euphoria in his pants, then he doesn't exist anymore, right? That's it. Everything else is just pencil marks. The outline is, I want to have this. Okay, I have to stop because I'm horrified at the things I'm about to say.
We'll take it on Rumble.
Myself.
Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to, if it's okay, there was a good clip on one of the channels that is from one of the ladies who's representing the case, and so let's watch this.
The first thing to say is this is the UK Supreme Court, so what they decide applies across the whole of the UK. It isn't just something to apply in Scotland. So, we should all be grateful for Women Scotland for pursuing this case. And they've gone through multiple stages of this, actually. And now here they are at the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the Scottish government had brought in self-ID, and then the British government stopped it. And the Scottish government had argued that anyone should be able to change the sex recorded on their birth certificate on the basis that that's how they felt. That's what we mean by self-ID. Now, we said that's a huge problem. And they said, no, it doesn't matter. It's only a piece of paper. It won't affect anything. And now here they are in the Supreme Court arguing, as you've illustrated, that it changes everything. That if a man gets a new birth certificate that says he's a woman, he gains all kinds of rights and women can no longer exclude him. So this is a massive case, and it looks like the Scottish government now really shot itself in the foot because they're arguing against self-ID. No one can reasonably bring that in because they're arguing about it making an enormous difference to all of our rights, to safeguarding, to privacy, to everything that affects women particularly.
Okay, so there's a larger clip. Let me see if I can find the whole thing. Show this thread. Oh dear. Full clip. We're going on a journey, people. 9 minutes. Sorry, hold on. I need to. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, sorry. Something crazy was going on. I thought it was going to play in an X again, but it started playing in YouTube. So I need to share a different screen. I need to share a different screen. Sorry. So, okay, now I need to go to present and to share screen. And I need to share a different screen. This should work now. Okay, let's go again.
Apparently, according to the Supreme,
Oh, sorry.
Big news up in Scotland. A woman's a woman. Apparently, according to the Supreme Court, saying sex is biological is not transphobic. This has been a landmark case over whether transgender women can be defined as female. For Women Scotland, a campaign group, is appealing against guidance from the Scottish government. Remember that old thing? Kind of finished Nicola Sturgeon's political career, under which trans women who were born biologically male can be legally defined as female if they have a gender recognition certificate. Yeah, that's it. Get a little printout, put some word art on it, and you've magically somehow defeated God's law and biology. The legal battle was sparked by a piece of legislation that aims to increase the number of women on public boards and included individuals who had undergone or were undergoing gender reassignment surgery in its definition of women. But any outcome of this latest case could have major implications across Scotland. Lawyers could use the judgment to argue whether trans women can access women's refuges, prisons, changing rooms and other single-sex spaces. It was Aidan O'Neill Casey representing For Women Scotland. He's my favourite person of 2024 so far. He told a panel of judges, I have to make it plain, the submissions by my client are not transphobic. And he's talking about examples of things being absurd. And he said it was absurd that a female victim of sexual violence could reasonably object to a man without the word I'm a woman now certificate touching her, but would need to be comfortable if he had that bit of paper. And he went on to say sex just means sex as that word, and the words woman and man are understood and used in ordinary and everyday language, used every day in everyday situations by ordinary people. I mean, the big question I have is how on earth did it get to this point that you need a Casey in the Supreme Court pointing that out? Let's speak to Fiona McEnena, who's Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters. Fiona, this is an incredibly important ruling. I get to the impression. I don't think it's going to suddenly derail the woke train who want to see jocks in frocks lurking around a box. But at least we now have in the Supreme Court a little bit of legal defence, a little bit of legal cover and a definition that once again comes down on the side of reality, that biological sex is that. It is biological sex.
Yeah, it's a really important case. We haven't had a ruling yet, and we probably won't get that till the spring. So we haven't got a decision. But there are a couple of things that are really important about this case for all of us. The first thing to say is this is the UK Supreme Court. So what they decide applies across the whole of the UK. It isn't just something that will apply in Scotland. So, you know, we should all be grateful to For Women Scotland for pursuing this case. And they've gone through multiple stages of this actually, and now here they are at the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the Scottish government had brought in self-ID, and then the British government stopped it. And the Scottish government had argued that anyone should be able to change the sex recorded on their birth certificate on the basis that that's how they felt. That's what we mean by self-ID. Now, we said that's a huge problem. And they said, no, it doesn't matter. It's only a piece of paper. It won't affect anything. And now here they are in the Supreme Court arguing, as you've illustrated, that it changes everything. That if a man gets a new birth certificate that says he's a woman, he gains all kinds of rights and women can no longer exclude him. So this is a massive case. And it looks like the Scottish government now has really shot itself in the foot because they're arguing against self-ID. No one can reasonably bring that in because they're arguing about it making an enormous difference to all of our rights, to safeguarding, to privacy, to everything that affects women particularly.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you, Fiona, I am particularly concerned and deeply aggrieved by the fact that you have men who suddenly say I'm a woman wanting to come into women's spaces. I have zero tolerance with that approach. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it throws women and girls under the bus at the altar of, well, I don't know, some newfangled political correctness that didn't even exist about 2 seconds ago. But what I think would really help our case here, and it's something that even we're a bit squeamish to talk about, but I think it's high time that we did, is start drilling down into some of the dodgy men who have opportunized things like this. Start looking at the fact, what are the statistics there of men who have entered women's spaces, have caused harm to women as a result of opportunizing some of these sort of newfangled cultural trends. And also, I think we really need to start looking into, and again, a very difficult and awkward subject to talk about, when it comes to men who profess they are women, how many of these people are genuinely gender dysphoric? How many of these people have certain fetishes like autogynephilia?
Yes, I mean, the thing is that the philosophy requires us all to accept that if a man says he feels like a woman, that he has certain rights and entitlements. And as you've just illustrated, men can do that for all kinds of reasons. They may believe it, they may not. They may get a kick out of it. They may enjoy dressing up as a woman. There used to be, the thing called a transvestite. Everyone knew what that meant, and nobody thought that it meant they were really women. And certainly people knew that that didn't make it appropriate for them to go into women's spaces. I mean, there's another thing that was mentioned yesterday in court, which I think links to that lesbian groups can no longer have a lesbian-only, female lesbian-only association if the Scottish government wins. If the Scottish government is right, they're saying that a man who says he's a woman and he's attracted to women is now a lesbian. And they actually admitted that in court. Clearly, that's ridiculous. So we very much hope that will be reversed. That illustrates the madness of this law, because lesbians have enough to put up with creepy men saying you just haven't met the right man. And now those men can put on a dress and demand the right to go into a lesbian association. That cannot be right.
No, it's absolutely sickening. And what's interesting as well is we don't see this really happening in the other direction. We're not having the big court cases about women who want to identify as men, saying, I want to access men's spaces, I want to play in men's sports, I want everyone to sort of use my pronouns. I don't know whether that is because statistically, when it gets to sort of the generation that have already sort of been through the process of saying they're transitioning, there are far fewer, I think. But last time I looked at what were once stats on gender dysphoria, it was a predominantly male condition. Or whether this also actually reflects what we're talking about here, which is when you look at the vulnerabilities involved, when you look at physical powers, and when also you look at some of those fetishes that may be being disguised by men saying, oh, well, it's just because I identify as a woman.
I think you're exactly right with that last point. When you look at the age and sex of people claiming to be the other sex, among young people, girls are massively overrepresented. So there's something really tragic happening with teenage girls who feel deeply uncomfortable, partly perhaps with the attention they suddenly start to get from men. So they are disproportionately represented among young people claiming to be gender dysphoric. But once you get to over 30, there are, if you look at the middle-aged transitioners, it's very rare to find a woman who decides at the age of 40 or 50 or 60 that maybe she was a man all along. It's not that rare among men. So I think there's good reason to think that some people are abusing this, and it should not be their right. The point is that there's no way of telling who the good actors are and who the bad actors are. I mean, some people would say they're all bad actors. Who knows? We don't know what's in anyone else's mind. But what we do know is that women who go into a male-free space deserve to know that it will be male-free. And that's why this case matters to all of us.
And not just male-free, pervert-free. And I think this is one part of the argument which people are very worried about talking about. And that is the Venn diagram of men who actually have particular fetishes, who then want to identify as women. And it will be exactly those If you leave your front door open, the person who's going to walk through it is the burglar who wants to nick your telly, not the good Samaritan. If you leave a woman's changing room or special space open to a man who says, "Oh, I'm now a woman," guess what? The opportunists with fetishes are going to take advantage. Fiona McInerney, it's always wonderful talking to you. Keep up the good work. You're doing great things for women and girls.
Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute, Tara.
Thank you. So that was good. I only watched the shorter clip earlier before we started, but I'm glad that we took the time to watch that because I think it was quite informative. Do you want to say something, Artless, about that clip?
No, I think she covered most of the stuff that I think I mentioned earlier. So the floor is open for you guys. I think she more or less said, yeah, it's the reason why it's so consequential is that it's the Supreme Court. So ostensibly this is being brought, a case being brought from Scotland. The ramifications could potentially affect the whole of the UK because the Supreme Court has called stand, right? And this third appeal. This is the third case in this scenario. Yeah, it's the stakes are pretty high. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I think if you think about how low trust is in institutions, in both I don't know about where you are, ladies, but in the UK and in the United States, the trust in the institutions is quite low. So if this gets out, and at least it's getting a fair amount of coverage, that the Scottish the courts the Scottish government's position is to the point that no, if a man quote unquote transitions and has this GRC, then he's attracted to women. Now he needs to be regarded as a lesbian, and if he was kept out of a lesbian association or whatever it was, dating app place, whatever, because of that, then the lesbians would be in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are they really going to stand on that? They could.
That's
they might.
really.
Who knows?
But I think this is where I think some of the ultras are so upset about it, because it's like the fact that we're even talking about this in the Supreme Court just highlights the absurdity of this ideology. I mean, this is such a straightforward question: is that guy a woman? No, he fucking isn't. Okay, sorry. If you're saying
Yeah, next.
Yeah, come on. Why are you even asking me this question? Stupid. So
yeah, but it's like, really? Well, their feelings, but I remember that all the way back from Jermaine Greer before she was canceled for saying that if I sow airs on my I don't become a dog. And the lady from BBC was like, well, what about their feelings? They really feel and this and feel this and feel that. It's like, this isn't about feelings. It's about
it's about the reality.
Yeah, it was
because
so. Well, they feel bad, or I'm like, well, so what?
Yeah, but unfortunately, the thing, your feelings
can't what I want all the time.
Our reality. That's really what it comes down to, right? You can have as much feels as you want. Everyone likes a good vibe, but your vibes can't trump reality. Okay, that's just what it is. And I keep saying this. This summer, we have seen a man punch a woman in the face. That's the ultimate. That's where this ideology leads to. Like, we can't continue dancing around this, right? Okay, because we have seen it in as stark a way as you can ever express it. Okay, I know Imam Khalif was not trans. I know that he was an intersex male, but what's going to end up stopping these people? Because the IOC, for example, even for trans athletes, I think they had sort of agreed a criteria where these men lower their testosterone to a level that will still triple the average woman's level of testosterone. How is that fair? So,
and this is the thing. Once you open the door, then every single thing becomes a freaking negotiation. And that is why I understand the alter position where they got where they are and where I am. I understand that sometimes you need to be diplomatic. I understand why they went this route with the court case and all that, and I hope it turns out in their favor. But once you open the door, everything becomes a negotiation. And we have to have these really demoralizing, like you said, insulting to our intelligence things about, well, what about this? What if a guy does this? What if a guy does this? And it's like, we're not at testosterone level. No, we're not a guy who cuts his dick off. We're not a guy who thinks he's a woman. We're not any of those things. And to have this thing, well, what about this or what about that? And that reminds me of the Posey Parker clip that I'll find while you respond to
me, the way I disagree with truth is, you know what? This is probably not going to win me any fans, but actually, the UK did write good laws around this. The problem is the subsequent politicians that have come after the laws are written. There's been mission creep. Nobody's wanted to enforce the regulations of the law, the letter of the law, right? So these exceptions are already in law. Judges have been captured. The politicians have been captured. I mean, I don't know whether you've been paying attention to any of the assisted dying bill debates, for example, online.
Yeah, well, that's another whole other thing. Jesus. Yeah.
I'm thinking about I was just reading some of the tweets that are coming up. I'm like, it's so great that people are actually, because I actually thought that people are so stupid now in the UK that they wouldn't actually end up even having this. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have lost all trust.
Well, look, humanity as a group are not really hitting home runs lately. So. Of the good kind.
I'm pleasantly surprised to see a lot of MPs come out and explain quite thoughtfully, I think, why they're not for this, and because not just the principle of it, everyone's going to have different ideas of whatever, but in terms of safeguards and everything else, because if we look back to what they did with the GRA, 15 years later, we're at the Supreme Court trying to interpret what they meant 15 years ago or 10 years ago or whenever. Do you know what I mean? So clearly our legislators, they're not very good at this stuff, are they? So I don't know what trust them with something as serious as life and death, which is what this assisted bill is about, because it seems sort of people who don't pay attention to the finer detail who are now trying to write this other law. And you're like, I'm not sure about that, guys.
No, and I would agree with you that I think that's where the Stonewall and the kind of the organizations becoming like protection rackets. And so if anybody's being afraid of being called transphobic or non-inclusive or whatever with the mission creep. But I think that also there's the idea, like, is it really necessary to have a gender recognition certificate? I mean, I understand that, that from what you've told, what you share with us, they had provisions in there. And it seems to be largely a matter of those not wanting to be enforced because of the cultural trade winds, or not wanting Stonewall to come after you, or not wanting to be canceled, or whatever it was. And then you and Artless and I had a show before. We had quote after bizarre quote from Labor MPs saying the most bizarre stuff about gender, and you're like, what? Children aren't born with the sex. You're like, what? Not only women have cervixes. You're like, okay. But anyway, on just as a funny thing, because one of the main ultras, maybe the first ultra, at least in our generation, was this is Kelly J. Keene, Posey Parker, but she was responding to I don't know if you guys saw this woman play, but she was responding to some of the questions, I think, that were coming out of the some of the proceedings that were coming out of the case at the Supreme Court. So I'll play this.
What about Beth?
If this person had surgically transitioned, would that be something you would
What about Bethany if he had his own cock in a pocket, or maybe around his neck? What about that? Would that be all right, Bethany? What about if his penis was like in dust in a small bag at the back of a locker? Would that be all right? What if he just wore lipstick? What if he just wore his testicles as earrings? Would you accept it then? Like, at what point do you think someone magically changes sex and you should just welcome them into every changing room and every space? What if he only wanted to look at your vagina for 1 minute, Bethany? Would that be all right? What if he just wants to
look at your tits, and not your vagina, maybe a small cheek of ours. Is that all right? Would you accept that?
If this person had surgically transitioned, would that be something you would
She missed her calling. Yeah, she could be a comedian. But I thought that was in her accent. Anyway. And this is the thing about having to be like, at what point? It's just, and that's the thing that I understand what you're saying about that there were provisions, but just that play, it just seems like it was a slippery slope from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, why does a man need a certificate that says sometimes he can be regarded as a woman?
Yeah, I think so.
You could just say, you could keep, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Sorry, just that the GRA on its own, right, was meant to be, they never anticipated that we'd get, it was meant to be for a small group of people who had quote unquote a medical condition called gender dysphoria, right? Okay. And they would have to go through the 2-year living test, the medical panel assessing before they were granted this certificate and everything else. So all of those things were supposed to act as safeguards to weed out the AGPs, the weirdos, the nut jobs, all of that kind of stuff. And only those people with the GRC were meant to then be treated, quote unquote, as women.
But even that's crazy, isn't it?
Sure,
if you think about it, the idea that what other illness, if we're saying this is gender dysphoria, and transsexual is a clinical diagnosis, and that this is for their benefit, to relieve the stress they have about the incongruity with their mind and body or whatever. That even then, it's still saying that it's still, why couldn't it, and I'm just asking because where we are. Not that you're responsible for this law, Artless. No.
No, for sure not. It's good to understand their position. It's good to understand. I don't really understand.
I'm just trying to. Right? I mean, this is because we have I shouldn't. I'm just gonna be in the U.S. situation now. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all this stuff. So that includes what you want to call yourself. It includes if you want to wear makeup. It includes how you want to dress. So it seems interesting that it was necessary to be like, okay, well, they can get a certificate that says that the driver's license and their legal documents can say W instead of M, because somehow that's going to be so helpful to them. Where it could have been, look, you can't discriminate against people if they're dressing in a way that's non-gender conforming, the word that they love, and leave it at that.
So the reason why it didn't work out the way you're describing it, Tanya, is because there was a guy. Okay, the GRA, it came about as a result of two processes. There was a guy who had gone through the whole whack, and then by that I mean he'd actually
bottom surgery,
all that kind of stuff. And he wanted to then, at that time in the UK, the woman pension, the age at which women could take their pension was lower than when males could take their pensions. I think at that time it was women could take their pension at age 60, but men had to take it at 65. And so having lived quote unquote, with his dick chopped off and all sorts of things, and calling himself a woman and things like that, he then got into this fight with the Department of Work and Pensions, where they wouldn't let him take this early pension because he wanted to be treated as a woman. And so that's when he took it all the way to, I think, the ECHR, and then the ECHR kind of passed this, he won at ECHR, which then forced us in the UK to also then amend legislation in order to cater for this person, because he was just one out of what at the time was a growing cohort of people. But go back and read Hanson's notes back at the time. I remember David Lammy, who's now the Foreign Secretary, was like, "Oh, it's not going to be more than 5,000 people," and now, well, look at where we are. But
They just pull these numbers out of anywhere. It's like that guy, that random dude online, although he has lots of followers. He's trying to be like, what's with the deal with the trans bathrooms? It's like 1 out of every whatever. And it's like, how you don't know that?
Yeah, you can shut up anyway. It's my bathroom. It matters to me. Hello.
Yeah. But I get how these things can happen. And I know that some people, and I don't know, I I haven't checked her references. I'm just going to take her at her word. She seems careful. Jennifer Billick, the people who've gone back and looked like, we're seeing this now, but there's been things put in motion at the legal level since the 90s. This whole notion of gender recognition and wanting to get that put out in law, and then you wait for the case. And you get lucky with this guy who said, "Hey, I've transitioned, so I should be able to take my pension earlier." And then you get that precedence, and then here we, again, the slippery slope thing. And I get that why they would assume, because they're buying what they're being told, that this is just a few people and it really helps them out, and you should just be nice. And here we are, and nobody wants to say no.
Yeah, but the issue is, okay, you have to remember the climate then. It wasn't being treated as an identity. We didn't have any, cross-dressers. We had the cross-dressers and stuff, the transvestites and stuff, but they weren't entering female bathrooms. You know what I mean? This was meant to be seen, quote unquote, as, these people have a mental condition and so bad, and some of them are going to pop themselves, and, it's, the pension and things like that. It wasn't, bullshit. And they were, yeah, and it was meant to be for a minute amount of people, primarily men at that point. Yeah, it wasn't. But fast forward now, 15 years, 20 years later, actually the fastest growing cohort are young teenage girls.
Yeah.
So the dynamic completely changed, and also, if you're looking at it,
when do we normally make laws for small, teeny tiny groups of people?
Yeah. So
who else gets this treatment?
Yeah, I think. Disabled people, for example, they're a small cohort. We make laws to try and accommodate them in certain ways, and I think they were thinking of that.
I mean, that's determinable. That's what I'm saying. I mean, like why we have ramps for people is one thing, but the idea that we have to acknowledge the delusion in some guy's head is different.
Yeah, but that at that point, it wasn't. It was quote unquote seen as determinable because you were going to get a medical diagnosis from a doctor of gender dysphoria, and the doctor supposedly wasn't supposed to just write it out like a speeding ticket. He was supposed to assess you and be like, "Oh my god," like how you'd probably treat someone who was anorexic.
Who really is a woman in the inside and who isn't?
A sexologist
had this mental condition where,
I understand that. I'm just saying out loud because, of course, now we have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah,
of course.
So like, now
it's like, and
of course,
I don't have to jump through any hoops. I can do whatever I want. I can go into the women's toilet. I can walk into women's sports. That wasn't the scenario they envisaged at that point. It was supposed to be for a small amount of people who had jumped through some kind of process. And now we see that they don't want to have a process. They just want to go in whenever they want, however they feel like at a time of their choosing. And that's where the whole thing, the pack of tumbling down, because clearly that is just not going to be acceptable in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's where the rubber hits the road, really. The reason why I think for me, I don't get as ultra bad. I don't want us to end up becoming like the States, where the Republicans have some of them have a very demeaning way of talking about these people. And of course, I'm angry about them every day, but at the end of the day, they're still human beings, right? Like, I don't want people being beaten up in the bathroom because of me. You know what I mean? Like, or someone putting a gun on people or any of that kind of stuff. I just want them out of our spaces. That's all.
Well, and this is the thing. I'm also not going to be responsible for the backlash that I didn't cause.
Yeah.
I mean, if the people who really thought that they could push it this far and there wouldn't be any pushback, and I still don't think, but that'll probably, and this will be and now anytime anything will happen in the States is that anytime anything bad happens to someone who says they're trans, it's going to be like, well, see, it's because of the bathroom thing and Nancy Mace and Donald Trump. And now it's, everyone, nobody's safe.
Yeah. If you didn't go to the bathroom, this wouldn't happen, right? Like, Tanya? If someone says, we don't want you there. Oh, sorry, Tanya, go on.
No, sorry. I don't want to cut in, but I understand what Artlist says. I think that is totally understandable, especially for people like religious, like the Pope, who will, entertain the troons and stuff. You know, this is their mandate. They have to do that, right? And that's fine. So I totally get that. I think also, you know, there's a concern, like, you know, in the States, like, oh, don't indoctrinate our kids, and then people tack that onto some other issue, like, you know, like this Charlie Kirk, where, you know, he wants to go and reduce funding for schools or what, but you know what I mean? So I think that there's a real danger of using this on the other side and tacking it onto issues that, you know, are really, really things that we don't want to sign up for. So
Yeah.
back to bringing it back around, that's why I think they have to get rid of the whole thing, right? Because it's, yeah, you know, sure, there are the few people, and we don't want to be mean, and we have to be humane, and we have to treat people like humans. They're all humans. They all, you know. But on the other hand, it's being used for all sorts of, one way and the other. The whole topic, one way or the other. Everyone is using it for his own ends, and it's bad and it's nonsensical.
And not to mention
the
the medical
use it,
stuff.
bigger it gets. Sorry, what's that?
I mean, not to mention the medical stuff.
Yeah,
the medical
right?
interventions and the trans kids and all that. It's just, it's
Every
like, how
time
do you
we
say
say it,
no?
we
No,
expand it.
it's only this, but not that. It seems like it's sometimes things are binary.
Right? Like, we
It's
have to
yes
not
or
just
no,
close
not
the
a
box. We have
spectrum.
to throw it in the ocean, kind of thing.
But before we leave this topic, I wanted to. We've been talking about a bit because, again, the ultra. For those of you who are stopping on now and aren't familiar with the lingo, ultras are like the hold the line. There's no such thing as trans. We're not going to pretend that there is. You know, even if whatever it is, even if they're like, okay, if you have gender dysphoria, whatever, that's not who you are. That's a symptom of something else. Just like not have any track for it. There's no transgender does not exist objectively, done. And then you have the people who want to be more diplomatic, or maybe they believe this, that no, there's actual trans people, and then there's the people who abuse this provision. And so the gender critical people would play more on that side. And with this is another dividing line with the ultras and the gender criticals, is the idea about is what's our goal here? Is the end goal to just make it clear, to clarify with the GRA, to like reassert the safeguards and the boundaries, or to totally repeal it? And there's been fights back and forth. And I was just wondering if you could, since you've been involved in this longer, if you want to say something about that and about why this was the more practical approach to take to get this clarified in law, not try to repeal it.
Okay, so I think, yeah, the only thing I take exception to what you're saying was that we think, I mean, the people who are an ultra, there's something called quote unquote true trans. I don't believe in any exceptions for any of them. So, you know, but I do believe, of course, that we need to obviously have one unified term to describe the people who want to live and be treated as the opposite sex, and that is trans. So when the ultras say there's no such thing as trans, I don't think that's a sensible position to take, because clearly there's a cohort that exists who are trans, or they want, whatever you want, for want of a better word, right? That they want to live and be treated as opposite sex, whether you're a man or a woman, whatever it is. Okay? And that phenomena is what is gender. So saying they don't exist, I don't think it's a coherent position, especially when at the end of the day, in the West, anything that you want to do is by the book, right? It's by the law. So we need terms to describe these people. We need terms which to be able to argue our points. Otherwise, what are we going to go to court and say that's an AGP nutcase? It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the sort of I've always said that in this movement, there's space for everybody, and there's space for everybody in the sense that I've worked with all of these groups before. Actually, now that I'm out of it, I can say that now. So I've worked with back in those days when it was like really tough and weren't getting a hearing, I used to write policy briefings for some of the conservative politicians and everything else. Okay. And now we've got, groups like Sex Matters and whatnot to actually, start doing on a more professional level and just, do all the back-breaking work, because back then it was just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we go to the wall. It was a climate of no debate. We, you know,
Oh, yeah.
it was really tough. Okay. And that's why, you know, so, you know, earlier on when I was saying it's in the UK, we were very lucky that the issue never got polarized. So that allowed for the discussions for us to break through. But if we'd been operating in a climate of, say, like the Americans, where someone says something, oh, they're the ultra-right, bigoted people, okay?
Yeah, no, everything's through the filter of red and blue at the moment. Well, for a
Helped
while.
us, even though I've had my own issues with, you know, JCJ, WPUK, you know, I can acknowledge that their presence within this fight provided, one, the feminist arguments, rather than screaming, he's an AGP, or he's an autogenophobe, or you know, he's a pervert. We're not going to win us audiences with politicians who are already scared of the topic as it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they would not have granted us those audiences if we had come in that strong at that point. And so, yeah, you know, this is a personal thing, but they always say, you know, you have to tread softly and then you skin the cat, you know, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, there's a learning curve. You learn as you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
GRA
I certainly,
it is.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, is a GRA bad law? It absolutely is. How are you going to repeal it? And I think the frustration I have, I can't speak for anyone else, it's when the authors say repeal, let's move beyond the hashtag. How do we get beyond the hashtag to the policy? Because that's what I care about, right? Okay. And I haven't seen anything from authors that translates to policy. We do need a vanguard movement that screams and shouts, but we also need the people who sit in the quiet rooms and work out the policy and work out the finer details.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think said that they keep you know, attacking way other people are going about it, because actually for me, I can myself again here, the court cases, the policy cases and everything else, actually, one, they helped refine my way of thinking about the issue. I knew it was wrong instinctively anyways, but it allowed me to really flesh out my arguments as to why it was wrong, you know. You need to marry the two together, instinctive and it's unfair and it's unjust, and how that translates.
Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking about when I was just my, you know, when I was in having that exchange with the grandmother of what she, you know, she's the grandmother of a transgender child. And once I thought that, because I didn't know, you know, and when she brought that up at the third response, I was like, okay, well, my first thought was like, oh, you know, it's too bad that you are going along with that. But I was like, and I thought, no, I'm not, I'm going to pull back a bit and just say, well, I mean, it was still direct that, you know, if you think that you're the grandmother of a transgender child rather than a granddaughter or grandson, that's, you know, that's your business. But you know, that type of thing. And I hear your point that this has been around for now. There's people who have gone down this route. There's people who really have grabbed on to this identity. It means a lot to them. And they've, you know, if you've done things to your body and all this stuff, the people that have gone along with it, the people in legislation who have gone along with it, if you want to give them any kind of soft landing, I see the point of being, you know, pragmatic and sympathetic, even, you know, regardless if it's totally sincere, because you're trying to get to a different place than you are now.
We don't need to use the extreme terms, right? Okay, like at the end of the day, some of them are AGP. We can focus on enough issues, right? Okay, the ideology in itself, as we've all acknowledged, it's not truthful. Okay, so that's a starting point. So for me, it's like, why don't we focus on those things? This is the damage it does to women in sports. If you're bathrooms, women deserve their privacy because women are autonomous human beings. You know, bodily autonomy is really important. There's so many other points that we can focus on without screaming pervert, pervert, pervert. You know, like that's true, right? Okay?
Yeah, and platform too. Yeah.
right? Okay. Because you know, for me, when I was doing all the reading about it, when I was doing all the research about it and everything else, sure, of course, I even had to learn how to change my language, because I remember once I was in a room and I had said something, and I didn't realize it was seen as an insult, a slur, and someone wrote to me privately and said, "Oh, by the way, that's a slur," and I'm like, I didn't know that, and it was TRANNY, and I didn't know that at the time, so I stopped saying it because. I didn't remember it was perceived as a slur.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it allowed for me to again refine the arguments, and there's lots of arguments to make. That obviously men are physiologically stronger than women. That men, the rape stats don't lie. The violence stats don't lie. You've got lots of stats to back up, right? That science tells us obviously that they don't change sex and everything else. So there's so many reasons on which to stand on which, and when we talk about the stats, even, the fact that even from the fact that the cohort has changed from, a mostly older AGP type male to, teen girls who are now, wanting to transition and lock these off and everything else. So there's so
I get that, but so wouldn't you want to, just to speak specifically to the UK situation and Dr. Jane, Dr. Jane, I don't know if she's saying Cassandra to be ironic, but she should be Jane Claire Jones. Maybe she's Jane Cassandra Jones now, about Cassandra, the Greek goddess. But she put out today, because I think of this argument that's going on, or back and forth, she wanted to say, "I'm just going to say to all the women who consider themselves part of the fight against gender ideology in the UK, there are two organizations without whom this movement may well never have gotten off the ground, without which there would not have been a movement for you to join whenever you joined it. And those are Fair Play Women and Women's Place UK." And Julia, who is an ultra, I would say, she's on the, she responded to when, because the Women's Place UK put out a thing saying that they're like done now, so that they, I think maybe because this was this was formed to deal with this issue, and maybe now they're like, because like you said, you can't appeal what the Supreme Court says, and so, and she responded, platformed Hayton, sorry, so it was fun. So Women's Place UK was founded in response to proposals to reform the GRA 2004, and our campaign has now ceased. Okay, so they want, basically their thing about getting these things clarified. And Julia wrote back, platformed Hayton, who says himself he's an AGP, but he identifies as a trans woman, 3 times. Harrison the same. I can't talk anymore. Routinely referred to men as trans women, and she championed the notion of real transsexual, apologized to Harrison when I said there's no such thing as a trans woman, trashed Kelly J. Keane, advanced level gaslighting, adieu. Now, I don't know enough about this to comment on that. I know there's been, when Julia and Kelly J. Keane, for example, started to work together, and there was people who were put off by their direct approach, let's say. And there's been friction ever since. But I'll let you say more about what you want to say about Jane Claire Jones' position and Julia Long's position about Women's Place UK.
Obviously, Jane is a controversial figure within the movement, because a lot of the time she's very arrogant in the way that she puts her points across. Seems to think that if it's not something that she's put her hand on, it, what everyone else is doing is wrong. Okay, and clearly that's not the case. Okay, I have my own issues with KJK, but there's no denying that she's also fought the fight in her own way, and it's also brought some movements. So it's also brought people into the movement, right? Okay, her going out on those Let Women Speak events, which would attract large numbers of people, it was helping us move the conversation onto the public square, right? Okay, because we couldn't just keep the conversation confined to academia and to small policy rooms. You need your average person to also the consequence of what we were fighting for, right? And I don't want to go back, but I'll mention two things. I remember once I was sitting in the police room and I was like, look, I have a girl in London who braids my hair. She has no clue of all the stuff that we're doing, okay? Because all she cares about is her kids, her life, getting us, she doesn't know anything about what's going on. But obviously what I'm fighting for is going to affect her even more, because she braided my hair. I paid her cash in hand, but on her off day, she was also a dinner lady, So I kept thinking, oh my God, if this woman ends up like what we now have with the Darlington nurses having to, the policy changes and says, oh, we have this guy who has to change in your changing room. She doesn't have the tools to fight that. I can handle myself just fine. But I'm talking about someone who's an immigrant, who's poor, those kind of people, always worried about them because they don't always have the tools to fight the stuff on a level that it needs to be fought, right?
Yeah.
You know what? Someone like Kay would appeal to them because she speaks plain language.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, the steering at policy level matters, but you also need to have plain speakers who can translate that to the ordinary person.
Right.
And that
makes sense.
That's also important. Okay. So I just don't think either side should diminish either side. But in terms of what Julia was saying about platforming Hayton, who's a trans-identified male, in those days, because the climate was that we were all seen as these bigoted, nasty right-wing, and I mean, when I say not even right-wing, we were called fascists.
Not fascists.
Yeah. It was really hard. The climate, people don't understand. The climate was brutal. Okay, it was really, really brutal. So to carve out that space, and then I will say this: when the movements first started, WPUK and Fair Play for Women, they brought the level of organizations. By that I mean they were the one who were organizing this. Like, there's a consultation, we need to respond to that. They were the ones who were doing that. Nobody else was doing that. So how do you get your voice heard? Because the girl who plaits my hair and is a dinner lady, she doesn't even know there's a consultation, and she doesn't have time to write into it, and she wouldn't know necessarily how to write back to it either.
Yeah, and we still have this. At least I think it's more. It used to be. I think it's still on the BBC maybe, but in the States, what happens whenever there's a thing with especially about sports, they'll have so-called they'll have trans-identified men come on and talk about it. And it's framed as a trans ban, and this, they're being banned. It's not framed as reasserting that women's sports or girls' sports are for women or girls. It's always centered around the people with the trans identity. And I think that I think what I can understand why people gravitate to the more reasonable, or because Hayton would acknowledge that he'd say, I'm not a woman, I'm a man who, and they would put, and some of the outlets felt comfortable letting him, having him do that. Whereas the women were just, like you said, just, really, turfed. They were turfed and canceled and harangued and all kinds of things.
I think one of the first times Julia tried to organize something in the House of Commons for like a briefing or something. The MP who tried to do that, he was cancelled. This is how bad it was. Like, it was really crazy. Now it's funny just talking about it and people, this is why now I feel comfortable being like, oh, okay, at least we can have a laugh about it and stuff. But back in those days, it was so brutal. I've accompanied someone to a disciplinary, at her job, because on Twitter she accurately sexed Laurel Hubbard. And she had a very prestigious role at an institution who I will not name. And I'd actually warned her when she was doing this, like, don't put your real name on, blah, blah. They took her to, it was a disciplinary. We had to pay a lawyer. It was madness. And this is someone who'd never been in trouble in any way, shape, or form. She was shocked. I remember her saying to me, oh, I used to march for the CND. I did the Mandela Civil Rights. I'm like, baby, we're in a whole different ballgame right now.
Yeah.
So
that will not save you. Tanya?
I think all that that context was awesome. And also, I really like what Artlist said about everybody kind of fighting the fight in her own way. I think that's, that's the point. That's totally the point. The thing about WP UK, well, they did a lot of great stuff, and I totally agree with all of that. But they also, they represent this kind of, they became the establishment GC, and they kind of smack down anybody who didn't. I mean, it's not just that they platformed Hayton, who afterwards got platformed everywhere all the time. I mean, I haven't seen him around lately, but God knows he's probably going to pop up again. And they did platform Harrison, who, played on a women's rugby team and had Stella Perrette fired from the Morning Star Online for that comic she drew because, he found it so offensive. So anyways, it's not just that they platformed them, but they also went out of their way to sort of smack down anybody else. And I think it's fair to say they didn't play nice with others, and the enmities that they made, they just have to own them. I mean, and like everything else, there's good and there's bad. They did good. They kind of stepped in it too, a lot of times on purpose, seemingly. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry they're going, but
I would, for example, the way they treated Kay in the early days was not great. Okay. Back then she wasn't as, I would say, dramatic as she is now. So there was no need for some of the I mean, we were already being called fascist and right wing. So why would you give succor to the idiots out there by repeating or regurgitating their tropes against her?
That's right.
Maybe now you could say, okay, but this is based on her behavior now, not back then. Back then, the things that she was saying, they were not extreme.
Yeah, woman is an adult human female. She put up a billboard and had a T-shirt.
They were so mad because Julia and KJK doorstepped McBride, right? They were so mad about that. Everybody was so mad about that these two went to, a democratic institution and talked to a democratic representative democracy, and they were so mad about that. So, they did a lot of kind of needless.
Not like, confronted him in a way that looked like they were badgering them, and therefore they looked like bigots, and therefore, they're very good at disassociation. Like most people on the left, as soon as someone does something wrong, the person must be excommunicated, and that's exactly how they try to treat her. Okay.
Yeah. I think there is a class component. I think they didn't like the head girl thing, but they acted like it sometimes, and I think there was still, maybe they didn't realize the monster they were up against. Playing kind of politics of civility, and there's a certain way you act, and there's a certain way you do that, and they wanted to disassociate. Maybe they thought that would get them some sort of something, but yeah, I think once and there's certain, and this happens also, that Antonio was hinting upon this, and it became like a turf thing. Like, this is our thing. They can gatekeep. You have to, kind of go through us, like obligatory, intersection, and. Yeah. They did. I think that they didn't know how to handle people like Kelly J. Keane.
They didn't, and also they didn't. It's twofold, right? On one hand, they were dealing with their own internal battles, because within the left, and specifically the Labour Party, they themselves were still being excommunicated and being ostracized and things like that. So I think they felt like closer association with someone who was using the kind of strident terms that KJK was using, and she didn't care. So, I mean, even back then, and you've got to remember, back in those days, even calling a man I was once banned, like, on my real account for what's it called, for stating biological facts and calling someone he. This Elon Musk took over Twitter. I was banned. That was the climate in which we were operating in. We just were not given one bit of rest at all. You know what I mean? If you wanted to talk about it, you had to talk about it in some roundabout way. And I mean, that's why she herself was banned. KJK herself was banned, I think, like 4 or 5 years, if I remember rightly.
Well, and I think that's where the whole. I mean, there's a reason why she called it "Let Women Speak."
Yeah. That's right.
But I think you hear it. What both sides have failed to realize is it's okay for everybody to work in. I've always said this. We work in parallel. we don't have to. I don't have to be close friends with any of these people. Okay,
Yeah.
I can acknowledge they've all brought something to the fight, and where I find it useful, fine, I'll work with you. Where I don't find you useful, I just won't work with you. I think that's just what it is, right? Like, you know, each and every stage, trying to gauge it. I tell my others, I work on priority, impact, and urgency. Okay, so at each stage, and because this topic, it covers so many facets of female life. Okay, from sports, toilets, to women in prison, all those areas. You work with who can get you to XYZ stage for that particular issue at that point. Okay, because the way this battle has turned out, we've had to tackle each one painfully slowly. It's never been one at one go. When they were doing the laws, it was one, but when we were fighting it, it's different ones. First you have to fight the toilets. First we have to fight the sports. It's been each stage. First we also talk about freedom of speech. It's been a very painful step each stage to get to this point. KJK has given a voice to the masses, and I don't think anyone can take that away from her. But there are also limited areas that she can reach in terms of getting the policy changed, right? Like, she brings awareness to the fight. She doesn't get the policy done. And if you fight this, you have to fight it at institutional level, because
I think it's the street, it's the online, and then it's, of course, you have to get into the rooms and work with people who write the laws or change the laws, and they're obviously going to be more susceptible to certain discourses than others. But it's good to have the other people out there.
They captured
they
have trans kids to themselves, right? So they are not necessarily coming in this with an open ear at all. You know what I mean? Like, I used to have my MP at one point was Dawn Butler, who is completely captured. Okay, so you can imagine
she's the one that says kids don't have a sex. Yeah.
Okay, so I've never got anywhere with her. I remember writing to her at one point over, I think it was after we lost the prisons case, about men and women's prisons. We lost the first case, KPSS. We lost that case, and I remember writing to her. She was like, "Yeah, no, it's fine." I'm like, "What the hell?" But what I just did was I decided to go around her and start working with conservative MPs and getting them to, do the briefings and, there, and getting them to ask questions in Parliament, and just keep pushing the issue, because I realized Dawn Butler, unfortunately, she was my MP and she was on board. It would have been so much easier, but she wasn't going to be that person for me. And she was MP in a borough where even if she put shit on her head, they'd still vote for her. Because that's just that borough, and I just wasn't going to be able to get any traction on that score. Okay? So at that point, what JK was doing and the relevance of her was the public awareness that she was bringing to the issue. Women were losing their jobs. Women were being recorded on police database. We had lost the public square, and when Maya lost her, it was just awful. We just didn't have any outlet at all. Okay, everything had to be done in private and secrecy and everything else. And she was going out and gathering, ordinary women and standing on the street. He's a man. This is what's happening. Blah blah blah. That aspect was needed. Yeah, it was needed. Needed.
Well, someone had to break break the silence or break the glass or whatever metaphor you want to put in there. Crack the dam. Like, for example, go ahead.
Wouldn't have much influence over what women Scott are doing now in terms of what they've had to do in Scotland, which was far more captured. We thought what we were going through in England and Wales was bad. Scotland was infinitely worse. Like, at least in Wales, we had a conservative government, and a lot of conservative MPs secretly agreed with us. They were just too cowed by the trans movement in Stonewall to do much about it. But in Scotland, they were all in. So it was even more crazy, like.
Yeah. And that was where self-ID was born. Yeah. You just say it. You just say if you're a woman or a man.
Yeah.
You can change.
And so
in Germany, they have that now. You can change every couple of years. You can change what gender
Change your baby.
You change your baby's gender and all
Change
kinds
your
of things.
baby.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies,
I
what's your schedule like? Because we've been going for 2 hours, and Tanya's
Okay.
looking like she needs to. Are you all right?
I'm all right.
because
I'm all right.
I had my dip, but now I have a second win. But I don't want to keep on. I mean, I don't want to keep you guys going.
No,
So
no.
what's your schedule? Are you okay for time, Artless, or do you need to skedaddle?
I'll keep 20 minutes and then I'll skedaddle. If that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Tanya, how
sounds
are you?
reasonable. That sounds good. 20 minutes,
Okay.
probably.
So
Yeah.
this is actually because we have a segue because there's a UK Sarah McBride who's the I'll just say Tim.
Right.
Trans-identified man who is a male who was elected to Congress and that who precipitated Nancy Mace's becoming the turf queen of the moment. And so Sarah McBride, who, I mean, McBride really knows how to milk this. So McBride released a statement saying, I came to Washington to work for the people, not fight about bathrooms. So basically saying, I'm not going to fight this. And then people were like, oh, how reasonable, how fantastic. Oh, Nancy Mace was mean. She should have just went and talked to her and they could have figured it out. And I'm like, yeah, man. And it's so crazy. It's like, okay, so a male agrees not to use the women's room. Oh, what a prince or princess. So when McBride was going to try to use this to position himself as like the reasonable trans. Everyday Americans go to work. So this is Sarah. Everyday Americans go to work with people who have life journeys different than their own and engage with them respectfully. I hope members of Congress can muster the same kindness. And it's kind of like there's no journey that turns a man to a woman, but whatever. So Julia writes back, pretending to be a woman isn't a different life journey, Dave. It's living a misogynist, fetishistic lie. Sounds like it might be time for another visit from Posey Parker and myself to set you straight on a few facts.
Yeah, right. Dun dun dun.
There's this
I wish I
connection.
would do it too.
Yeah. Anyway, so on that note, let's see. So so Helen Joyce also chimed in on Sarah, formerly Dave or Tim. I don't know I think it was Tim. Maybe it was his I don't want to dead name him.
His name was
Sarah
Tim.
McBride. Yeah. Sorry, was it Tim?
Yeah, it was Tim.
Okay. Yeah. So formerly Tim, Sarah McBride has been working since at least 2013 to give men the legal right to enter women's spaces at will. It must feel surreal for him now finally to experience pushback. And Helen continues, he's been treated like he's Rosa Parks since he left university, when all he's actually been doing is successfully demanding that men can overstep women's boundaries. And now he's come up against Representative Nancy Mace, a woman who has told him to back right off in no uncertain terms. And Julie, did I have that out there? Oh yeah. But I don't know if there's beef between these two, but Julia responded to Helen's tweet. Seems like it's not just the TRAs erasing women, unless our direct challenging of him in 2019 was all a dream. Posey Parker seemed real enough to all those who denounced us for it, though.
Well, she's getting a bit of her own back, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Helen Joyce has form. I mean, we all love her, but she has form for kind of erasing other people. I mean, I heard her.
Yeah, didn't Jennifer Billick say that she didn't cite her work?
Right. Helen Joyce came to North America and interviewed a whole bunch of people, including Jennifer Billick. And then just didn't mention it when she wrote her book. And, she also I heard her on the Ayaan Hirsi Ali podcast years ago saying that there were no feminists in the United States, which is, ridiculous on its face. There's Wolf, there's Fist, at the time this was before WDI. So, I mean, we all love Helen Joyce, we appreciate her, but she hasn't exactly been, bigging up all the women doing the work.
Yeah.
It's true.
So anyway, here's a background on our Mansell in distress, who is such decided not to push the bathroom issue, at least in Congress. So bombshell story. No, it's not, but this is another thing. So a bombshell story. Few are talking about. Joe Biden, his family, and the state of Delaware have brought us Tim Sarah McBride, the first trans-identifying man elected to Congress. So, and this is Michael Knowles, and I just want to say that I'm sure other people have normally if there's women involved, I try to use their tweets or their work.
Right.
But he had put this all up in one tweet. So I'm just saying, that. So if somebody else has lengthy things on Sarah like this, sorry, but it's the one I came across. So,
That's all right.
And of course, it's like bombshell story, and of course, that this hasn't been going on, but we know that there's been like a media blackout. And when these guys come across it, they think they've discovered gold, even though there's gold all around. Anyway, so 2. Like most trans activists, McBride is not content with mutilating his own body, Michael Knowles' words, Google, and forcing society to pretend he's a woman. He's in favor of chemically castrating, mutilating kids, and appears upset by parents wanting to remove LGBT materials from the classroom. He even wants boys to be able to compete against girls in sport. When a lawmaker brought up the unfairness faced by Riley Gaines against Will Leah Thomas, Tim evaded the obvious injustice by complaining that Republicans didn't respect Thomas's preferred pronouns. Let's not lose sight of the real problem here: misgendering, correctly sexing. When Tim first claimed to be Sarah, he said that identifying as trans felt mutually exclusive to achieving his political career goals. But his career goals show the opposite. Once a mere white guy, Tim suddenly could claim DEI privilege. That's probably why Michael likes this story, because he's targeting the DEI. By identifying as transgender and dubbing himself Sarah in college, Tim's political prospects skyrocketed. After declaring himself Sarah, this otherwise unremarkable former staffer I didn't realize that he was Beau Biden's former staffer. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's in with the Biden family. They're dear. They're dear to each other. They're dear friends.
Oh, this makes more sense now. Mm-hmm. Okay. After declaring himself Sarah, this otherwise unremarkable former staffer for Beau Biden. So that's the son of Joe Biden, who died a few years ago, I believe. Was appointed to major activist roles and given a platform to address the U.S. Department of Interior, Department of Justice, Department of Housing, Urban Development, and more. Cool. So, Tim was backed by then Vice President Joe Biden, along with Hillary Clinton and an entire Democratic Party establishment, becoming the first trans person to speak at the Democratic National Convention. Tim was welcomed as Sarah into Hollywood activist circles, furthering his fame and career prospects as an up-and-coming politician. Yeah. Everybody, that's the it thing to have now. A trans friend. Or to be trans kid. Michael Knowles, the celebrity schmoozing included run-ins with LGBT activists such as Laverne Cox and Frankie Grant. He also rubbed elbows with sketchier figures such as Jacob Tobia. I don't know who that is. Must be that guy.
Is that the one that talked that I have the meme of saying nasty things about little girls? Is that him?
Could be. I'm not sure. Jacob Tobia. I don't know.
Yeah.
While Tim appears to make an effort to present a more palatable version of transgender ideology by dressing up like a young Hillary Clinton, off hours, he has palled around with more typical extreme lascivious exemplars of transgenderism. All right. Oh, that's the guy. Oh, he was with the, okay.
That's Tobia there.
Yeah. Okay. Michael Knowles again saying this, not me. There's no such thing as normal transgenderism. Men and women are different. Men can't become women. Thanks, Michael. And vice versa. It's a false ideology that harms everyone that it encounters it, especially those who fall prey to it, most especially children. McBride is now a congressman. McBride is now a congressman. Will Republicans stand firm against this dangerous ideology, or will they call the man Sarah and invite him into the women's bathroom? Now, again, I realize that he's acting like he's the first one to stumble upon this. But for me, I mean, I thought it was interesting because he had it all put out together and I was in a hurry. But also, to me, the most important part is the last part. Making it, because this is from this is also the Ben Shapiro thing. What is it called? Daily Wire. That
Yes.
that they're watching the Republicans closely to see how they react to this. And I wonder what's the rules about gendering. So now I'm thinking, because McBride is going to be in Congress, yeah, and so how are they going to talk to him? The person who's like, oh, we now, the floor now acknowledges the Congresswoman from Delaware, and people are going to have to call, she, her, and all this stuff. I mean, how? And
I'm not familiar
go ahead.
on gendering, but Nancy McBride, she sometimes calls him. She calls him, right? She's not, like, in her interviews and things. So clearly, it mustn't be. What is it? I don't know. I don't know enough.
I can show you. I have a clip of her because, again, I think that this might have been I think this has actually been a learning curve for her, and because just the tweets that I followed, the phrases she's using and what she's and then I think there was the thing that she was threatened by the same guy who was threatening J.K. Rowling, and she did. And she did retweet, which is a good sign. She retweeted a tweet from Kara Dansky.
Yeah.
Saying,
I think actually
show that.
Her.
So it could be that, because when I first think, because when people were interviewing her about this, the people interviewing her were saying Congresswoman and calling him she and all this stuff. And I don't know when she switched that, but I will play a little clip of her because she's and we'll see. Because this is after she filed the request to the Speaker of the House, to whoever the head of the Republican Party is in the Senate, saying, I want it to be clarified that the women's room is for women, and the women and the showers are for women. Let me see. So you guys could. This will just take me a second because I got to get back into Twitter. So if you want to say anything for a moment.
Sure. Okay. I think Tim McBride actually. I know we should call him Sarah, but I'm sorry, I'm not Nancy Mason. I'm not in American politics, so I'm just going to call him Tim McBride. So I think he's really devious. Okay, there are pictures of him in female bathrooms, like 5 or 6 years ago. So I think like a couple of years ago, I think was it South Carolina, the ban, HB something ban. Okay, he made a point of deliberately flaunting that ban and then posting a picture of him in the women's toilet on Twitter. That is one of the most disgusting dominance and male privilege I've ever seen, honestly speaking. Okay. So, and you need the statement as well when the speaker said, "Oh, you can't use the toilets." He was like, "Oh, I disagree with the statement, but I'm not going to cause a fuss." Yeah, damn right, because he knew the Republicans would just not. They're not going to be as nice as the Democrats. They're coming in hard. So,
and they seem to be standing behind her. They seem to be, which of course, like what Tanya mentioned before, the political trade winds have changed, obviously, but they seem to be. Yeah, and also of course Marjorie Taylor Greene, also is jumping on this, and they're both more plain talking as well, just saying this is crazy, this has gone too far, but we'll see. So I found her clip. Let's see what she says. I need to share my screen again. Add to stage. Oh wait a minute, that's not the one.
Okay. The thing I was going to say with the thing that makes him more devious is he was trying to play the whole, "Oh, I'm above all of this. I'm just going to be. I've been elected to represent the Delawareans, so I'm not going to talk about this." When just like and this is where this is going to come across as bigoted, but I just think of it as the truth. The reason why I'm very apprehensive of having some of these people get into positions of power is that we see that inevitably they abuse that power, right? And we've seen this in the Biden administration, where of course the Assistant Secretary of Health has now, in his 4 years in power, has now engineered with the path to ensure that the minors, young minors, they don't set an age limit for when minors can have surgeries. So that's an abuse of power, using his identity. Like this would be like me being a black person and entering a parliament and using my position not just to legally advance the rights of minorities, but to do so at detriment to the wider population. Like this is clearly an abuse of power. Which
okay,
is,
so let's.
Funny.
No, the thing with you, we talked about that a while ago too. We went through the amicus brief that I don't know, Alabama submitted on behalf of Tennessee or the other way around, basically saying that they found that basically the gist of that is be careful of WPATH, and they mentioned Rachel Levine, saying that there's this communication of Rachel formerly whatever, so saying like, no, we shouldn't have, basically telling them don't have the age restrictions. That's problematic for us. So take alarming. So we'll see. Okay, so here's Nancy Mace talking about the brouhaha.
Well, number one, I want to see this in the House rules package. I want to make sure that no men are in women's private spaces, and it's not going to end here. This shouldn't be going on any federal property. If you're a school or an institution that gets government funding, this kind of thing should be banned. I think it's sick. It's twisted. I have fought like hell for women's rights. I mean, 25 years ago this year, I became the first woman to break the glass ceiling and graduate from a military college that was formerly all male. And to see the way that I've been attacked today and last night for fighting to protect women and girls, it's ridiculous. So if that being a feminist makes me an extremist, I'm totally here for it.
Is this effort in response to Congresswoman McBride's coming to Congress?
Yes, and absolutely, and then some. I'm not going to stand for a man. If someone with a penis is in the women's locker room, that's not okay. And I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. And I know how vulnerable women and girls are in private spaces. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms. I will be there fighting you every step of the way.
Right. Go on, Tanya.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing I like about, I like her jewel tones, but something that I particularly like about her that makes me want to trust her despite my, deep cynicism is that she's talking about women's toilets when everybody else talks about, excuse me, I've been drinking tea all morning, but I guess it's not enough. Everybody else wants to talk about surgeries for, the surgeries on minors, right? So the thing about the surgeries on minors that makes it kind of a red herring is they're like, okay, well, we'll stop this. You're not going to be able to get surgery until you're 17 and then go for it. So that's kind of that's not super helpful to do it. Yeah. She wants to stop this right where the battleground is, right? This is the goal. They want the women's toilets. If it's not about the women's toilets, if they can't have the women's toilets, then they're not going to be able to exist. Right. Yeah. So she's bringing the battle right to the high ground, right? She's taking it right.
It takes away the fantasy. If they can only pretend to be a woman in certain spaces, and that causes problems for them psychologically.
No, it's too hard. It's too damn hard to pretend when you're not in the toilet. You need to be in the toilet. So I like that she's not going, oh, the poor children, let's save them until they're 12 years old. And then I like that she's
But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not having it. AOC is not having it. So she says, women know that men don't scheme to dress like girls to assault them. Do we? They do it every day in broad daylight. Goodness. And the ones in power protect each other to keep it quiet. Just ask the House Ethics Committee or the President-elect of the United States. Leave women alone.
Yeah.
Okay, so something like this because AOC annoys me so much, but I've seen a lot of this conflation of Donald Trump and his alleged rapist stuff, and you see the gay stuff and everything else. By the way, I don't think they seem to understand the message. The message is no fucking men. So if Donald Trump came into the female toilet, he would too. There's no exceptions. It's not, let's not compare the two topics. you see what I mean? Like, it seems to be, the argument seems to be, oh yeah, if you're gonna elect Matt Gaze, then you should be okay with letting, I don't know, Sarah McBride or Tim McBride into the female toilet. It's not either or, hun. You know, it's like,
No.
and this
And also,
we
know, and also the question is, if the women's room is only for women, or women's single sex spaces are only for women, that's different than talking about the crime of a man. Unless Matt Gaetz was claiming he was a trans identified when he did it, they're not related to each other except for the fact that they're all men. Yeah, this whataboutism is crazy. It's like, unless you complain, so what's the idea here? Unless Nancy Mace went through and mentioned every bad thing that a Republican has been accused of, she can't say, I don't want the dudes in the men's room.
Yeah. But I think the other thing I would say on Nancy Mace is, I don't know whether you're familiar with Suella Braverman in the UK.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So for me, the way I think about Nancy Mace is how I used to think about Suella Braverman. Right. I literally thought she was quite an extremist and as crazy as or get out. But having said that, I was quite willing to work with her to achieve my gender ID objectives, because like, he was on board with us and she was the Home Secretary. So yeah, I'm going to use those credentials to get what we need to forward our agenda. I don't need to agree on everything other thing, but she's in power, right? And that's what happens. And I think I really hope that Kara Dansky finds a way of linking up with Nancy Mace and starts giving her briefings and starts getting her to help
here.
Like tone some of the rhetoric down, and they could really push for certain things to be done. I think Nancy Mace was saying something like she's been shocked by being contacted by women from all over the world, not just America, because she's now the face of the movement in America. Do you see what? And the reason why
I think what's hard to realize, if I could just, is that it's easy for us because we've been in this for so long to be like, well, where was she? Why now? It does seem convenient, and we don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who really aren't aware of how crazy it's gotten. Unless if something happens, you hear about something and whatever, and they're like, what? And I'm not surprised. And that, if that's true, and it sounds like it is, then that is also a good sign that she's taking this. She's, that her and her staff are listening to people who are coming over this. I mean, and you see it on the responses to her tweets that women in particular are so hungry for someone with a platform at the federal level there to say no.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's hopefully she's not, hopefully the Pritzkers and the Rotblatts and all the other people aren't able to like promise her the sun and the moon, the stars, if she, takes some more subdued approach. Who knows? I think it
end up being a cross between Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman, right? Where even in the Conservative Party, you had people who were kind of like, hey, are you sure you want us to go so hard on these people and blah, blah, blah. And, they tried to take the brief of women's equalities off her. She wasn't having it. And, because, of course, even within your own party, you're going to have people who either they have a trans kid, so they want to stop you, or, you know what I mean? Like those kind of,
Well, it worked out for her. It worked out for Cami. She's the head of the party now, isn't she? So.
Yeah. Well, I don't agree with her with everything, but I'm happy. I think we need, like, obviously one of her moves is to put Rosie Duffield in on the WSE committee, which is like a good thing for us. Only Kemi would have done that, and I believe she's done that based on the work that she'd worked with Rosie on women's rights while she was a minister, so she knows what brings to the table. And I think that's the kind of stuff we want to see as women. We want to see people who are actually there, who know how to challenge the bullshit, so in a constructive way. I don't like this movement. This is the thing. People want to get all tribal. I don't give a shit. Just go for the things that you need to get objectives met. In 4 years' time, Donald Trump will be out of office. So just utilize every bit of federal power that you can or leverage, and women across America should, make sure that they utilize the Republicans to pass the bills that they need, because otherwise it's going to be crazy. Have you heard about the sports is it San Jose, the Outkick did the story, the volleyball player, the male volleyball player?
Oh yeah. Well, there's more and more. Just today, it seems to be growing. There's 4 or 5 of the volleyball players that are going to taking the National College Athletics Association (NCAA) to court, and there's more and more. There was just another day that there's some of the teams that are refusing to play them, and that's what it's going to have to take. Unfortunately, to be like, no, we're not gonna participate in this charade.
Yeah,
it's really quick. And then there was the guy who was in a female sorority. I mean, it's just like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, no, this is the thing, the gaslighting for so long, and it's starting to break a bit, but for so long, just like it was here, that and it's the girls that are they get the press. Most of the media is like they're the ones with the problem. They're transphobic.
Yeah.
And you're like, and the ACLU will offer to try his case. It's like, oh, Jesus. Yeah. And you just like, what is everybody on? What's in the water?
I don't know what it's like in Canada, Tanya, but is it as bad as it seems to be in the States right now?
I'm not in the States. Not sure what's happening in the States.
No, I mean in Canada.
Where you are.
Canada's bad. Canada's terrible.
Trudeau is practically trans.
Can we call it Tranada? Because why call it Canada? Let's just give up Tranada.
The worst case I ever
had. Make Canada Tranada, and they can all go there. Everything after the B can go.
The Conservative Party, they are saying good things. We'll see. I don't see any Nancy Mace types. They're all kind of like, oh yes, this is common sense, but I don't really trust them. I don't really trust them that much, quite honestly. We had a few bills pass where there was no opposition in sight. No concern, like C4 with the bill for anti-conversion therapy, which is, don't stop a kid from going on the medical path because that's conversion. That everybody, they all unanimously hugged. So I don't know. I don't know if I trust them that much. We don't have a Nancy Mace yet. I hope we will.
Yeah. And to put a bow on this, and we'll wrap up. We'll save the fantastic Brianna Wu.
Oh.
Who's trying to be the Democrats? So you have Jenner on the Republican side trying to be the reasonable, true trans figure, and then you have Brianna Wu on the Democratic side. It's just like, my God.
You should call him John Walker Flint. What an excellent bandito name! He's such a cowboy.
Yeah. Well, if you look at his bio, Brianna Wu's bio, he's all about fighting for women's representation in gaming.
Yeah,
I bet you are. Anyway, so Jennifer Billick, this is a response to the Nancy Mace thing. I think it was last week. This is a great moment. It cannot be undone. Celebrate, but don't cling. From my perspective, we're on the verge of politicians and others ushering in the reasonable transsexuals. Yeah, that's what it kind of a pathway. It's been the pursuit all along. Any good lawyer fights for more than they think they can get. All I'm saying is dance, but don't get comfy. Remember who and what you're dealing with. Powerful, moneyed men who are reducing womanhood to commodities. The reasonable transsexual, in quotes, especially those invited to the political arena to change policies, are no less dangerous than the sexual offenders they're putting in women's prisons. Watch Mr. Meno tweets. And remember, too, Ted Bundy was a nice man. He was very, very reasonable.
So what does she mean by Meno? She trying to implicate him in? I don't understand.
No. He made a a video, a parody video on the nice trans or the reasonable transsexual or something. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
So
oh my God.
That's no.
no. Yeah, no. It was basically he makes that point. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, times are crazy. So it's one of these things that it is what it is. I feel like I mean I don't like Colin Wright because he's such an opportunist and a raging Zionist, but I'm starting to feel like that diagram he has. Like you feel like you're here with your politics and your principles and all this, but all of a sudden you find yourself adjacent. So I'm like, okay, Nancy Mace, like that's cool. And then yeah, it's just of course it's easier when you have the Democrats are so awful and you're just like, well, it's one side the ass or the other, but she at least she on this issue is coming out raging, and I'm going to support her. I'm not going to not support what she's doing because she has an R by her name. So
For sure. No, I support her on this. When she says, sorry, go ahead, Arliss, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with Tara that I think you absolutely should support her. She's the only one who's coming out swinging at the moment. There isn't an alternative, right? She has a national platform at this moment in time. The spotlight's on her. The time for American women to mobilize around her, brief her, get her to tone down the rhetoric a little bit, and just continue fighting as hell as if she brings this motion that she said she wants to bring, banning trans people across federal buildings. Okay, it probably might not, pass, but it's going to bring attention to the issue, and we want attention on the issue. You want attention. You want to talk about it because there's just been this dead silence under the Democrats where they've been not immersed in the radar. A lot of their bills have been going in under the radar.
Yeah.
What do you think the average American knows about, the guy in the sorority? Nada. What do you think the average American knows about the San Jose player? Nada. I'm telling you, they don't know because have you seen they misreport everything. So nobody really knows what's going on. Like we used to have that climate in the UK, but I think America's far worse. And and you can tell, like, even if you look at the responses to Nancy Mace under her tweets and stuff, sometimes I read the comments and I'm almost like, are we back in the UK 2018? They're even using the same arguments.
Well, she's being accused of weaponizing her rape to persecute trans people.
Yeah.
It's I mean, these liberals, you piss them off, they go crazy. It's just like she's weaponizing her rape. And the minorities who didn't vote for Kamala, they're having like fantasies of their families being deported. It's just the most racist and sexist stuff. It's just okay.
It's really crazy. Oh, but were you going to say something about Brianna Wu? Or Brianna Wu, whatever his name is?
Well, yeah, I have that's probably like 20 minutes. I mean, I don't know how Tanya's doing, and we could go. It's funny as hell.
It's up to I'll leave it to Tanya to decide.
Yeah, it's fine. Go for it.
Do you want to close your blind or?
Yeah, I guess I do. Although you know what, I have so many holes in the paper that it's hardly going to make a difference. You'll see.
Okay, so I haven't read all of this, but it looked good. So let me see if I can find it now. Where are you, Brianna? Yeah. Okay, so this is a nicer picture. This is a nicer pic of Brianna. But it's more photoshopped, but still the skin. I mean, I don't know what he uses for skincare. So anyway, this was so hilarious because I saw this tweet, Tanya, when I edited the part of our episode from a few weeks or maybe even a month ago, when it's basically saying that transgenders, whatever, is whatever you say it is, and this and that, the umbrella and all that. So when someone says, no, trans is this, it's not that, it doesn't matter. And then I see this tweet from Mr. Wu. You're not transgender unless you transition. Well, that's circular. Which means what? It's still so hilarious. So anyway, I think Wu thought this was, and here Wu is with his husband,
That's where he gets the woo from.
Yeah, that's how he yeah. So anyway, he put this out, was it
Wow.
yesterday? So can you see this? Do you wanna do the honors, Tanya, of reading Wu's
Yeah.
this is his olive branch to us ladies.
Yeah. I think for a lot of women, particularly after childbirth, their sense of being female is biology. And I fully admit that you have those experiences and we don't. Reasonable. But respectfully, I think because you've never been denied any area of expression, there's a lot women take for granted. You're not punished every time you act in a way that is feminine. You don't know what it's like to be forced into a lot of toxic male social dynamics that feel terrifying. You don't know what it's like to feel your brain malfunctioning on testosterone. Could we theoretically create a world where males could be as feminine as they want? I suppose, but it's a boil the ocean strategy. We don't live in that world and never will in my lifetime. I don't think it would solve the issue because the chemical imbalance in the brain is such a source of unhappiness. I think so many of you just need to really get to know actual trans women and not these social media stereotypes. For most of my friends, there's no way we make sense as people except as women.
Let me go get my smallest violin.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean,
Jeez.
I thought you would enjoy this, Tanya.
Yeah, women, we have nothing to
yeah.
complain about. Nothing.
So, Artless, someone took Wu to task, but before we get into how they did, do you want to say anything about this expression?
I mean, it's obviously bonkers, isn't it? Let's be frank. Tell me you've never denied any area of expression. We couldn't get the vote, you fucking twat. I think that's an area of expression. like women
couldn't get a credit card. For a while back, you get a credit card, couldn't do anything without. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just sort of like, are you fucking? I'm sorry. I'm so upset now.
No. I tell you, this is so classic. I'm like, this is what you come up with when you're trying to be the reasonable one. Oh, poor me, you don't understand, and we only understand it. It's all like it doesn't matter, dude. You're male. You're a man.
He's just demonstrated exactly the fact that he doesn't understand women, and that's exactly why he's not a woman. Okay, because
and Brian, you don't pass.
Yeah, you don't pass, dude. You don't pass. You don't understand us. You can't be us. Okay, so just sod off, eh? You know, like they're just. Yeah. It's ridiculous because it's like.
And this shit. Like, what does he think? He's in the 1900s. I mean, this idea that you're not punished every time you act in a way that's feminine. Like, what world are you living in? It's like, what? Like, there could be families and situations where that's suppressed, but are you going to tell me that in the United States and the UK now a man can't act feminine? What? Go hang out with Eddie when he's in girl mode.
Also, go and hang out with ethnic minorities, and a lot of women are punished for not acting feminine within ethnic minority communities, you know, because they're very bound to traditional gender roles. So if women of ethnic minorities don't wear the hijab, if women in ethnic minorities don't act in a girly way, they are singled out for that. They are ostracized for that. So I just read his tweet and I thought, you're not fucking serious, mate.
Well, and this is the thing is that and here, let's see, what was I mean, it's so fantastic. Could we theoretically create a world where males could be as feminine as they want? That's so far on my to-do list towards the bottom. What can I do so that all men can be as feminine as they want, whatever that means? If it means literally walking around like us.
That means bottoming in sex. That's what he means. You know, that's sorry. That's what he means. Yeah.
And then what is it? You don't know what it's like to feel your brain malfunctioning on testosterone. That is some bullshit.
No kidding.
Absolutely.
This is his story. This is his fiction. This is how he understands his situation. And he can't, but he must not be able to realize how batshit crazy it sounds. People who aren't trans maids are totally on the trans train. And what is this also? I don't think it would solve an issue because the chemical imbalance in the brain is such a source of unhappiness. Ooh. Chemical imbalance. I mean, it's like all this stuff is so pseudoscientific. He went to someone who's like, oh, it's a chemical. Yeah, it's so a woman is a chemical imbalance.
For someone who's never had a menstrual cycle and probably never actually felt his damn hormones change, like, do men even have these hormone fluctuations? I don't know.
I don't know. But anyway, this was fantastic. So, you guys might know Wildfire Whispers. Anyway, she. Do you know her?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I haven't read through this, so I hope it's not. But somebody, I don't know if it was. I think it might have been Maya Forstarter or maybe not. Somebody retweeted this thread with like a fire emoji. So let's see what Wildfire Whispers has to say to Wu. Right out the gate, this is rich. I'll let you read it, Tanya. Do you mind?
I don't mind.
We'll let you. I'll ask you. Please
anyhow,
read this.
Right out the gate, this is rich. Trust me, Wu, childbirth is far from the first time we as women and girls realize how integral our biology is to our experience as females. Whether it's the fact that way before childbirth, we've had to navigate the world knowing that sexual assault is a 24/7, 365 possibility, and thus conduct our entire way of operating in public life with certain precautions in place, or the constant conditioning of our elders telling us that all boys want is one thing, and it's our job not to let them have it because we couldn't possibly want it for ourselves, or the fact that whether we are in an abusive relationship or simply in the room with an angry and unpredictable man, we know fully that he could toss us across the room like a racquetball, and there's nothing we could do to stop him. So we have to strategize like hell in order not to, die. That was hard to read because of all her capitals.
Yeah. There's 9 more, Tanya.
Oh my God, this is still okay. Or the fact that we should actually do that little biological trick you seem to think is the only thing that defines us by getting pregnant. We have to worry about everything that intrinsically requires of us, which it does not require of the man that got us there, including and way beyond participating at all. This is mental excitement. There is not a woman or girl alive who is not keenly aware that our biology is a major part of our day-to-day female experiences from the moment we're old enough to use a damn fork.
Okay.
This part is downright hilarious. Women have never been denied any area of expression. Pardon me while I spit out my coffee. There may not be any clearer way for you to demonstrate that you have zero idea about the nature of experiences of women and girls than by actually typing this sentence. Let's go all the way down to basics, because Lord knows it seems like you need them, and talk about little boys and little girls. From the second little boys like you are born, they are seen and spoken about for things that they do. Billy runs so fast. Tommy is good at baseball. Brian says stupid shit a lot. That's meant to be him. Boys get attention and value for their actions. Girls, and pay attention here because you clearly haven't got a friggin' clue, are seen and spoken to about for how they are. Sally is so nice. Katie is so pretty. Wildfire is mean and ill-mannered. Girls get attention and value based around how others perceive us. So we as girls are born into social pressure, the likes of which would make you crumble like a cookie, honey. As women and girls, the social expectations of us are infinite and unyielding. We are in a constant expectational smoosh in regards to every single fucking thing we do and are.
Wu upset her.
Yeah. Again, women and girls are raised in a perpetual state of aiming for 1 inch spaces between the twos, too fat or too thin, too slutty or too frigid, too shy or too loud, too smart or too ditzy. You think you know what it is to be shamed for not behaving in the right way for your sex? Try living your life in a world where there's no way you could possibly try living your life in a world where no way you could possibly do it is ever right. And because
She's being a bit dramatic now too, but he does deserve it. He does deserve it. It's just like, yeah, like I said, I hadn't read it, so we could fast forward here.
Yeah, I think we're at 9 at 9 anyway. I can't really see the bottom, but yeah, the point is that, you know, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah. So this is the better part, though. This part I did see. Your brain is not malfunctioning from testosterone. It's actually a vital substance for your brain to be balanced and function properly. And if you did experience any malfunctions, it's more likely because you've had too little, not too much. I don't know if that's true. Probably true. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The real thing you're trying to say here is that you don't want to be feminine, you want to be female, and you will burn down reality and anything concerning the needs of actual women in order to do it, including giving us women delusional lectures like this in order to force us into thinking we don't know exactly what and who you are.
Does he want to be female, though, or does he just want to perform female submissive behaviors during sex and then act like as Jermaine Greer would say, the rapist always acts by pushing himself into our spaces and our categories. And
this one I totally agree with you with. As far as having chemical imbalance in your brain, go to an effing psychiatrist and deal with it. You have a mental imbalance. That issue is filed squarely under you, not us. Take responsibility for your mental health. We're not your friggin' mommies.
Well, that's
my God.
For sure.
Okay.
Artlist, I can't hear you. I think you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying I totally agree with what you were saying, Tanya. That he I don't think he wants to be female. I think he wants to perform femininity.
Mm-hmm.
He's not female. He can never know what it's like to be female. Mm-hmm. He can only identify with feminine tropes or stereotypes. And that's what he wants to identify with. It's not being female. Female is a natural biological sex category. He can never be. He can only identify with the stereotypes of what he thinks is feminine.
Yeah, and that's just that. And if anybody who thinks about it for a moment, it's obviously so. He, for whatever reason, likes to wear makeup and wear dresses and all that. He likes what that makes him feel like, and he associates that feeling with that I must be a woman somehow, in some way.
Yeah.
You know, when he says, "I only make sense," we only make sense as. For most of my friends, there's no way we make sense as people except as women. It's like, well, because you associate there's things you enjoy, you associate that with women, and so therefore you're somehow some sort of woman. It's like, well, no. And what I really love, and this is how where they say get out of your bubbles. I think so many of you just need to really get to know actual trans women. And my favorite thing that Venice Allen, she's a great tweeter, but my favorite thing is like, I did go and get to know and listen to trans women. That's why I'm a TERF.
Yeah.
Like we did do that. It's all over the place. It's not. This isn't just an abstract theoretical understanding we have of why we have issues with this whole TWAW, trans women or women. It's because we did do the homework and we came back and we're like, what the frick?
Also, I think the thing
that is happening
about it is women are not your support animal, right? So I'm sorry you don't being masculine or you don't identify with masculinity. Okay, that's, whatever. But that doesn't make you a woman. We're not like this carpet lying there and what you don't like, no, that's not how it works, boo.
Yeah. No, and here's the thing, like, let's look at all these people who only make sense to themselves as women. It's like, well, that's unfortunate for you.
I'm sorry Jenner was so confused when he won his gold medals for uber athleticism. What is it, the decathlon or heptathlon? That must have been so confusing for him, winning all those medals as the wrong sex.
And Rachel Levine, Jenner, Rothblatt, Pritzker, and Bowers all have fathered kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course.
These guys all, I mean, I don't know when Wu decided that he just, had to go full time, but
He's
it's
probably
just the
gay, right?
most, I mean, and after everything that's going on, and I have to tell you, Wu, if this is the best you can get, you are not going to be the reasonable trans one.
So sorry.
You have to at least raise the bar to gender level.
Tara, did you say Wu's father the kid as well?
No, I don't think he has. I think Wu might be gay, and I think that Tim McBride, I bet he's one of those trans-maxing incels. What do you guys think?
Oh,
the
God.
ones who trans-max with the two X's.
McBride, he was married to a trans-identifying woman.
Oh, is he?
Well, no, well, she died. So that's why apparently he's now, quote unquote, a widow. Oh, sorry. I'm not laughing at her dying. Sorry, I just want to be clear. Just like it's the absurdity of him calling himself a widow, not a widower. But yeah, he was apparently in a relationship with a young lady who was trans. So so she called herself a man. And then this guy.
Okay. Oh my God.
She died of oral cancer at the really young age, like before 30, like 28 or something like that.
Terrible.
Her name, yeah, it's awful. Her name, I think, was Andrew McCrae. I don't know what her real name is, whatever. But when I was reading this, I then found something else out, which is oral cancer is linked to testosterone, like the hormones and stuff.
Yeah.
So like even worse is her going down this transgender path could have contributed to her getting this cancer.
Yeah.
Like that's terrifying.
Yeah, I thought it was really alarming, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. It is because anabolic steroids are poison, which is why they end up doing all these hysterectomies to take out your internal organs so that you stop getting these gender unaffirming periods, because they can't just give you so many steroids that it's poison. So poor thing, and people are lying about it. I mean, it's being studied, but kind of like, you can't really say what's going on. Terrible. That's terrifying for him to push that now after that. If that's what he's doing. Terrible.
Anyway, ladies, let's wrap it up.
On that happy note.
Thank you very much. It's been great. Thank you for coming on, Artless. It's been nice having you back.
Yeah.
Hopefully next time we can see you as well as hear you. But that's
I'd love to see you.
I'll take it's but the voice is good. So yeah, the ladies' room is political. And if you're upset about that, don't point the finger at us. Point the finger at the people who went out of their way to make it a political issue.
Yeah, no kidding. Didn't have to be.
Yeah. All right, Les, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Oh no, you guys covered it all. But thank you so much for having me. And yes, next time my face will be shown.
Yay, that'll be nice.
It's a lovely face.
Yes. Some youth. Bring some youth to our
All right. Okay. Well, marathon session. Thank you, Artless. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, girls.
We covered everything, I think. We covered everything except for Jenner, but who knows? We don't have to cover him. It's old story. I just the Brian Wu, the Wu's I don't know what that was. I don't know if you thought that would be endearing, but my God, it's
One thing about Jenner before we go, though, do you think Donald Trump will make quote unquote an exception for him? Will he be the quote unquote true trans for the Republicans? I think that's going to be an interesting journey.
Yeah, let's see. He's running for some kind of office, isn't he, Jenner?
Oh, he talked about running for governor of California before and never went anywhere. I don't know. I just think it's just talk, but who knows? Maybe he will. Yeah, but with Donald Trump, I mean, he's quite transactional, and he likes him, and they play golf. They probably play golf together. I mean, I don't know. But it's kind of interesting because when he goes down his kind of rational, reasonable trans list, what he doesn't put, what he's never listed is women's only spaces.
Oh.
So he'll say,
Yeah.
you know, that he's on this with the sports thing that's not fair, and again with the no procedures for minors, this type of thing. But he doesn't. But because we know because speaking of Mr. Memo, we know that he uses the women's room.
What, Donald Trump?
No. Jenner.
Okay, I was like, what? Okay, did not have that on my big.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump used to go around apparently when he owned the Miss Universe pageant. He used to like to go hang out with the contestants in the the dressing room. So he's also, you know, but
he's also
he was a woman.
And
of course, Jenner will try. I mean, also get some attention, yeah. So because it's kind of fell off, and the reality thing isn't what it used to be, and his show didn't get picked up, and he's never on the Kardashians anymore. So, you know, maybe this is his way to yeah, of course he's going to try. We'll see. This will be the thing, is that I mean, if Mace has a different approach to Jenner than she does to McBride, then that would be all we need to know, that she's been pressured and has succumbed to it, because it doesn't make any sense to have those gradations given the stance that she's taken.
Yeah.
Who knows? I can imagine him being so charming that he could have a lunch with her and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They come out, you know, like braiding each other's hair or something.
I don't think it'll be so. I think like with him, it's his friend is Donald Trump. I don't know whether like she's because Nancy Mace she's not even a senator, is she? She's a congresswoman. So on the ladder of, you know, ambition, it's not. She's still fairly lower tier, not in a horrible way. You know, she's not like a Matt Gaze or anything like that. So in terms of like social capital, I think we should be more worried about his influence on someone like Donald Trump than we should.
Yeah,
for sure. Like I feel his relationship with Trump is what's going to be.
Yeah,
but
also it's, I don't know what he could give, because he would have to there have to be something in it for Donald Trump to do that. But what's different, I think that might be the one reason why, or that reason also, because what does Jenner have that Donald Trump needs? Donald Trump doesn't need the trans vote. You know,
he needs the money. Peter Thiel is the guy who funded Vance, right? Isn't he the one that set him up with that hedge fund? And so he's funding, and he's a transhumanist. He's funding all these eugenic things.
But that's Peter Thiel. That's not Trump.
No,
it's Trump transhumanist.
What's that?
Is Peter Thiel a transhumanist? I thought he was just gay.
He's a I don't know. I think he's one of these.
Well, all of them are, because all of them have the idea that what's AI? All that stuff is about, you know, is about furthering that. Where he is on the gender stuff, I mean, who knows, or what he has investments in, and I don't know. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that also on the right, you have a lot of media people who are not going to let this go. Yeah. So, for example, Megyn Kelly and some others who are going to be like, hello, it's not going to be the media blackout that it was if it was in terms of the people who could apply pressure to the Democratic side. And you know, so I think it'd be more difficult, but we'll see. I mean, how far it goes, because the easiest thing for the president to do is to undo what Biden did to Title IX.
Yeah, hopefully.
There's things they can do with executive order that don't go through Congress at all.
I think he definitely do that. Didn't he? I think when the day after he won, or a couple of days after he won, he one of his first announcements was something along those lines. I don't know.
Yeah, Biden. For sure.
Not Biden. Trump. After he won the election,
I
think he made a series of pledges around transgender issues, and part of that was the reversal, maybe, of the Title IX issue. I don't know. I
he made a video.
He said he has said that, but of course he can, you know,
He's kind of a
until it's done, it's not done. But he's been consistent, and he's even talking about doing the ban in the military again. That was thwarted before. I don't know. It's when he tried to do it the first time, but he's said quite I mean, we'll see what happens. But the sports thing, the surgery thing, and also getting it out of the schools, teaching kids the dangerous gender ideology.
I definitely feel like there's going to be a question for sure in America on those issues. I just, number one, it plays to Trump's He-Man type personality, right? He likes those things. He likes, you know what I mean?
Well, it's an easy win for him because he can just it doesn't take a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly, right? And the Republicans, they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. So like anything he wants to do, he can more or less do. And then on top of it, whilst the Democrats have been in power, the Republicans have made a point of passing all these anti-trans bills, right? So it aligns naturally with the party, like the stances he's taking. Like it's going to be an easy win for him. I just don't see it being presenting any.
Well, and you also have the whole Daily Wire guys who are on this too, yeah. So Matt Walsh and all those people.
Walsh. Yeah. So it's not. It's one of. It's such an easy policy for him to kind of, play about with. It's like throwing white meat to the base, right? Like it's a win-win for him. He's not going to have any resistance.
And also, I think that there's a Supreme Court case that's coming up around trans issues in terms of if they're going to be if they're going to qualify for. The case is that it's about a ban. I don't know if it was Tennessee and Alabama about banning so-called gender affirming care for minors. And it's being taken to court, and there's all these people behind it, the ACLU and the AMA, and all these people are behind it. And that's going to happen. And it's basically their claim is that transgender should be what they call a quasi-protected, a quasi-suspect class, similar to sex. And they're going to have to, and there's 5 criteria, and Tony and I went through those a while back. It doesn't seem how, I mean, to us, of course, we're biased to biological reality, but I don't see how they can make the argument that transgender refers to, an immutable trait. It's a coherent community, politically powerless. They're prevented without the status. They'll be prevented from, whatever. But, we'll see. And that's a conservative court. So I'd be surprised. I'm assuming that will have a case, and then that will have reverberations, especially for the medical establishment and insurance and all that stuff. So that'll be a key point too, I think, when that case gets ruled on.
Well, just like the Democrats, the Republicans are the party of money, right? So, I mean, they're not all trad Catholics like Matt Walsh, I mean, who's not even a politician, but they're not all these like, they're not all going to think that it's religiously bad to, let men tune out. They're not all going to be like that. Some of them are going to, some of them have their hands in the pharma pot for sure. So I don't know if it's going to be so clear cut.
No, but the Supreme Court is dealing with that's with, does transgender qualify as a quasi-protected status? And if they say no, which I think they will, then these bans stand.
Yeah.
They can't say you're discriminating against a protected class.
Right. Well,
there's always with the pharmaceutical thing, I agree with you that there's a lot of money here. However, Trump also, and it could be because he thinks he won't get passed, but is putting RFK Jr. in head of Health and Human Services, who's made a point of saying, basically wanting to clean house when it comes to the cozy relationship between the regulators and the pharmaceutical company and the AMA and whatnot. So who knows? But with him, I mean, until the ink is dry.
Yeah.
Who knows? But definitely, I think that the Democratic side got high in their own supply, that the media blackout didn't do them any good, because I think they're going to have to realize that most people don't think that that trans women are women, or and the
Yeah.
whole trans, so that is going to. I think the dam is breaking on this. So
That was
we'll
the
see.
stupidest position they could ever have,
Mhm.
and it must have been well remunerated for them to be such fucking idiots for so long across the board. It must have really paid well. And
Well, the Pritzkers have been funding this for a long time.
Sure, it's not just them. It's
Pritzker,
look at
and apparently she
Rothblatt
was. Yeah, and what I had heard, and Billick wrote about this, and maybe some other people, that Peggy Pritzker, who is Jennifer Pritzker's niece, was a lot of Obama's success is attributed to them, and they're very much into this gender stuff.
Totally.
For their uncle apparently, but also industry wise.
Totally. And then they fund Schellenberger, who's the spokesperson for Musk, who's Donald Trump's best friend. My only point is that they all the money is touching everyone. Like, I don't want to sound like Ralph Nader, although why not? That might be a nice change.
It's capitalism, yeah, but they don't. But capital, every single sector doesn't always get what they want.
No,
so we'll see.
Like,
so we'll see how happy Martine and.
I think
I have to say with Martin Rothblatt, he does have a good tailor. I mean, he does have a good tailor.
Yeah, well, that's his men's tailor. That's
but also, if you look at the cuffs, though, it gives him an idea that he has a bit of a waist, when of course he doesn't. I mean, he has a waist, but not a woman's waist.
To not forget is the role of Elon Musk in all of this. He's also got skin in the game because of his child who ended up being trans, right? So he has personal motivation to be on the GC side, for want of a better word, and he has obviously some kind of influence on Trump at this moment in time, right? So I think there's room to be optimistic for America right now in that regard. I just see that. I just don't see that necessarily. It's a win-win for him on so many fronts. I can't see it. I can't see us not pulling off a few wins under that. The Republicans were already naturally GC anyway, whether it was for religious reasons, whether it was because of the sports issue, whether it was because it's something that allows them to differentiate themselves from the Democrat position. They already had that.
Men are men. It's hard to lose with men are men and women are women, but
no kidding. They sure handed that
most
to them
people.
silver platter. Yeah, so stupid.
Well, and also historically, I mean, these things go back and forth. So after the 70s in the States, we had the 80s, yeah. So, I mean, it just a course correction, hopefully. Anyway, thank you, ladies. We've had a marathon. Us TERFs rock. Tags. Us tags. TERFs against genocide. Yep. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll get to talk about fun and light issues.
Yeah. It's been fun for me anyway, so.
No, well, me too. All right. Thank you, Artless. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone in the chat.
I removed myself. Okay. All right. So it's been Morbid Symptoms with Tanya and Artless. 3 different continents tonight, talking about how the ladies' room is political. The personal is political. The ladies' room is political. Because powers that certain groups decide that for some reason that to make who's a woman, and what conditions does a man become a woman, a political issue. So here we are, fighting the good fight for basic reality. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Please do like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.